When the cost of manufacturing robots drops to a nearly meaningless level, the boundary between labor and resources is blurred. A million mining robots, plus hundreds of thousands of armed mechs. All of them can be produced using just resources. No humans needed. No reproduction needed. No sacrifices needed. For the first time, Chun Meng truly touched the essence of power in this apocalypse. It wasn't population. It wasn't territory. It was the ability to self-replicate power. He alone, with AI and resources in his hands, was enough to build a complete civilization. And from that moment on, war was no longer a matter of numbers. Please continue following Chun Meng as we step into the next episode. The initial cost to manufacture a mining robot was 10,000 units of iron ore. Previously, he had upgraded the Robot Manufacturing Research Center module to level 10. After 50% cost reductions, the cost should have dropped significantly. But the result was still 10,000 units of iron ore. However, things were different now. After multiple consecutive 50% cost reductions, the cost of manufacturing one mining robot was now a mere 156 units of iron ore. What did this concept equate to? Roughly, 1.5 pounds of sunflower seeds. At this moment, across the vast land, 1 million mining robots were working frantically, as dense as a swarm of locusts. Meanwhile, 800,000 new mining robots were manufactured, costing a total of only 120 million units of iron ore. Residents? Mining. Just retire, all of you. Stay home, enjoy your old age, have kids, and pass down our civilization. That's all I need from you. Literally raising humans just to keep the species alive. The robots will handle the mining. Initially, when the mining robots were swept away by the storm, he felt a bit of regret. But later on, there was no need to dodge anymore. Let them be swept away. He had plenty of robots. In that moment, he experienced for the first time the sheer thrill of a Zerg-style civilization that lacked nothing except people. Not only that, the cost reduction effect of the Robot Manufacturing Research Center didn't just apply to mining robots. It covered the entire robot production line on the train. This included the Red Tier module, the armed black hole robot production line. The armed robots produced by this module had terrifying combat power. It was just that the previous cost was so high it made his wallet ache just looking at it. But under the condition of costs being repeatedly slashed in half, he had already tested it. Manufacturing an armed robot with level 50 attack intensity and level 50 armor only required 50 million units of copper ore. If armor wasn't needed and he only focused on firepower, a level 50 robot would only cost 1.25 million units of copper ore. What the hell is this? This meant he could absolutely spam troops, even harder than a Zerg civilization. As long as he had enough resources, he could completely bypass the reproduction and mating phases. He alone was a civilization. Moreover, they were all remotely controlled by AI, with strict military discipline, no fear of death, and a panoramic view. To put it bluntly, it was the ideal army for any lazy commander. This would be an unstoppable grand army. Chun Meng sat in his chair, letting out a long breath. Looking at the data on the train's control panel, he burst into laughter. Although he hadn't found any relevant information in the Mechanical Civilization's AI database, he was certain of one thing. The Mechanical Civilization back then must have consumed a massive amount of McPhee stones to continuously re-roll the super-tier effects of the Robot Manufacturing Research Center module. Their scheme to use troop spamming to counter troop spamming was undoubtedly successful. It was equivalent to resetting their stats over and over again until they rolled the most suitable super-tier effect. He just didn't understand. If they were that powerful, why did the Mechanical Civilization fall so quickly? The stronger the level 200 God-tier super effect was, the more helpless he felt about the modules with the word none in their descriptions. As long as the word none appeared, all subsequent super-tier effects would be none. He hadn't paid much attention to it before, but after realizing these modules would never have a level 200 God-tier effect, it truly broke his heart. This wasn't a normal upgrade. It was a leap from mortal to divine. Sooner or later, he would have to re-roll everything until he got the super-tier effects that suited him best. As for the remaining modules, he temporarily held off on upgrading them. He planned to wait until all the ore veins were mined out before doing a mass upgrade. Even though he now had a full million mining robots, the estimated total mining time was still about the same as before. Initially, he hadn't planned on mining the level 3 ore veins because it was time-consuming and yielded little resources. But now, with a million mining robots and extremely high efficiency, he wasn't going to let anything slip by. Even the level 1 iron ore was stripped clean. It was literally plucking every feather off a passing goose. It was just a pity there were no minerals deep underground. Otherwise, he would have hollowed out the entire planet. Let's go see how the construction on the Aqua Planet is coming along. Chen Meng was in a pretty good mood. Leaning on his cane, he stood up, left the control room, and headed to car number 10. After pressing a button on the door frame, a small, personal-sized cosmic wormhole appeared before him. He and Xiao AI stepped inside, then appeared amidst the ruins of a city on the Aqua Planet. Huayuan Iron Ridge, Taiping City. The once desolate and ruined city was now undergoing massive reconstruction. A large number of survivors were orderly clearing debris and rebuilding from scratch. It's quite lively. Chen Meng stood at the edge of the city, smiling as he looked ahead. This city held special meaning for him. It could be considered the true starting point of his enterprise. Statistical data showed that the total number of survivors on the Aqua Planet was 760 million. This number was lower than his initial estimate. He thought there would be around 1 billion, but the mortality rate during nearly 2 years of the apocalypse was clearly higher than imagined. Currently, all 760 million survivors have been implanted with iris chips, becoming residents of the planet. Originally, according to his plan, these people would be distributed across various ruins to mine renewable mineral deposits. But now, with 1 million robots, mining is absurdly cheap. In reality, there's no longer any need for humans to mine. However, he still kept this arrangement. He had to find something for these people to do, but there were no mandatory requirements. It was a mix of half work, half leisure. Their main mission was to have children and pass on the civilization. Once the city's reconstruction is complete and the civilization gradually returns to its original form, free love will naturally blossom, and human civilization will continue to be passed down. Sounds very ideal. A true, let nature take its course approach. Let's head back. The city is still under reconstruction, so there's no need to go deep inside to check. Chen Meng stood at the edge of the city, watched for a moment longer, and then returned to the control room. The level 200 God-tier overpowered effect of the spatial gate is truly too perverted. It can even fit an entire planet inside the train. If the level 200 effect is already this exaggerated, he was genuinely curious about how terrifying a level 500 overpowered effect would be. For the Yizhou Chamber of Commerce, the past 50 days were just a boring and tedious journey. But for the planet, these 50 days were a fundamental transformation. If 50 days ago, the planet barely had the qualifications to wander the universe, then after this mineral planet was fully mined, even if they went to the Casa Civilization Alliance, they would have some ability to protect themselves. I love mineral planets. And mineral planets love me. Chen Meng returned to the control room, sat down, and looked at the data on the screen. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up, his eyes full of laughter. Although the external conditions were a bit harsh, inside the train, there was absolutely no sense of abnormality. Plus, there were no monsters harassing them, making the mining process extremely peaceful. It felt like a mouse falling into a vat of oil, or a cat falling into a fish market, an endless feast that simply couldn't be finished. The original plan was to head to the Casa Civilization Alliance after mining this planet, but now, the plan had changed. He had tasted the sweetness of a mineral planet and wanted more. Near this star system map area, there was another mineral planet, 378 light-years away. It was the one he had detected back on the Aqua Blue planet. To create a wormhole from here to that mineral planet, it would cost 63 billion units of iron ore. Counting both the round trip, it would be over 120 billion. He did some quick math. As long as that mineral planet could be mined normally, it would definitely be profitable. A mineral planet couldn't possibly have only a little over 100 billion units of iron ore, unless that mineral planet was so harsh that it was fundamentally unminable. Otherwise, this was a guaranteed profitable deal. He definitely had to go check it out. He could completely afford this 120 billion unit trial and error cost. After all, once the current mineral planet was fully mined, he would have nearly 1 trillion units of iron ore in his hands. 11 days later, the fleet of the Izhao Chamber of Commerce slowly approached. As soon as they penetrated the hazy atmosphere of the mineral planet, a piercing alarm blared inside the train. Warning! Warning! Energy shield depletion rate is extremely high. Immediate evacuation recommended. Qiu Yizao's face turned a bit ugly. He quickly pushed the control stick, making the train retreat from the mineral planet before them. This mineral planet is actually a rogue planet. This is a bit screwed up. As long as it's a rogue planet not orbiting a star, its surface temperature will be extremely low, making normal mining impossible. This mineral planet must not have been wandering for long. Otherwise, the system wouldn't have just issued a warning. It would have gone completely dead. When approaching the mineral planet and noticing there were no stars around, Qiu Yizhao already had a bad premonition. He didn't expect to be spot on. Then where did Senior go? Right at that moment, a voice suddenly echoed in the train's control room. Wait for me outside. I'll come find you guys once I'm done mining. This is Senior's voice. Qiu Yizhao was slightly stunned, looking at the information displayed on the train's radio screen. The suffix of this voice was unknown civilization, the planet. So Senior's train is actually called the planet. The planet. The number of stars in the universe is so vast it's uncountable, as numerous as the stars in the sky. It is these stars that create light and heat, allowing countless living beings to exist. Could this be the meaning behind Senior naming his train? Hoping to be like a star, bringing light and warmth to other living beings. The reason Qiu Yizhao was determined to work for Senior wasn't just because of his strength and background, but more importantly, because Senior was truly very gentle. That's right. Even though at first, due to a language barrier, he was almost slashed by Senior. Compared to the powerhouses he had interacted with, Senior was already considered the most gentle. Even gentle to the point of having almost no limits. Senior is indeed Senior. Qiu Yizhao sighed in admiration, then ordered the entire fleet to stop and rest near the mineral planet. For Senior's train to still mine normally on a planet with such a harsh environment, he couldn't help but feel deep respect. There was only one thing that truly baffled him. Senior's method of communication was the train's radio, not a communication satellite. How could a train's radio transmit a signal that far? This component can only be upgraded to level 3 at most. Logically speaking, if one frequently travels in space, they must buy the blueprint for the red quality component, the communication satellite, on the market. From there, they could craft an advanced version of the train's radio for space communication. A standard train radio is only used for planetary communication. It fundamentally cannot be used in outer space. Not bad at all. Chen Mang looked at the overpowered effect of the train's radio on the control panel. This green quality component had always been at level 10 and had never been upgraded. Just now, he directly pushed it to level 200. The cost to upgrade a green quality component from level 1 to level 200 was extremely low, requiring only 800 million units of iron ore. To be exact, it was an extra 770,000, but that was just a decimal point. He was already used to ignoring such trivial numbers. The level 10 overpowered effect of the train's radio allowed trading with other train conductors directly through the radio. This effect had helped him quite a bit in the past. He just tested it and found that trading was only possible within the same planet. When he tried to trade with Qiu Yizhao, the system directly reported a transaction failure. The level 20 overpowered effect of the train's radio can force send up to 10 private messages to others. Level 50 overpowered effect can send anonymous messages. Level 100 overpowered effect can conduct cross-regional trades. Level 200 overpowered effect. Transmission range is equivalent to the maximum range of the enemy detection radar and other exploration components. Simultaneously, it can broadcast a live feed of a battle once onto the screens of all trains within a 100,000 light-year radius. If a man, at the age of 35, accidentally tore a stuffed doll he received at 16, only to find a love letter hidden inside, and that gift was from the girl he had secretly loved for years, then that man really ought to go drinking tonight. Chen Meng was feeling exactly like that right now. He had already cleared the apocalypse on the aqua blue planet, and only now did the cross-regional trade effect appear. If he had this effect back on the aqua-blue planet, it truly could have sped up his development significantly. But there was no other way. Back then, the cost to upgrade a green-quality component to level 100 wasn't cheap, and he didn't have spare iron ore. Most importantly, he didn't know the level 100 overpowered effect would be this. If he had known earlier, he would have upgraded it a long time ago. But all of that still wasn't the most important part. The most important thing was the level 200 overpowered effect of the train's radio, live broadcasting a battle within a 100,000 light-year radius. He had witnessed and experienced this effect firsthand. It was when the Zerg civilization annihilated a newly ascended civilization. They live broadcasted the scene of hundreds of thousands of wormholes being created in an instant to all the trains in the region. That was exactly this effect. It's just that his effect might be a bit stronger. The live broadcast of the Zerg civilization only showed wormholes continuously appearing. But his battle broadcast was much more detailed. Even every single cannon shot fired could be fully broadcasted. Simply put, the image quality was vastly superior. 100,000 light years. Although it would consume quite a bit of resources. As long as he wanted to, he could let all civilizations and living beings within this range watch a live broadcast of his battle at any time. Very powerful, but it wouldn't be of much use in the short term. He wasn't arrogant enough like the Zerg civilization to go around threatening others. Currently, he was still the one being threatened. However, having it and not having it were two completely different concepts. Not bad. Chun Mang leaned back in the control room, resting his head on his hands, nodding and smiling in satisfaction. He really liked the level 200 god-tier overpowered effects. Every time, they brought unexpected surprises. Especially these white, green, and yellow quality components. The upgrade cost was low, but the effects were incredibly strong. Even though they couldn't directly increase combat power, they enhanced the train's foundation from multiple aspects. Once he reached the Casa Civilization Alliance, he would purchase a large number of low-quality components that he was missing. He didn't need to worry about how much these things would cost. By then, his iron ore reserves would be far from small. He could just let the Yizhao Chamber of Commerce handle it while he hid behind the scenes. Before he had enough capital to flip the chessboard, his development motto consisted of 3 words: hide really well. To make sure absolutely no one knew of the planet's existence. Therefore, before entering space, he deliberately removed the game-over spray paint from the planet. Keep a low profile. Act with a low profile. Pretty good. He liked it this way. Conductor. Right at that moment, Xiao AI's voice echoed in the train. There's something I think I need to report. Biaozi and the others have been depressed for quite a while now. Oh, Chen Meng raised an eyebrow. A collective heartbreak? No, the planet has developed too fast. They feel like they no longer play any role and are a bit in despair. Biaozi was initially very excited when he first piloted the Pope Mecha. But after entering space and witnessing everything, especially seeing the 1 million mining robots, he completely despaired. Very normal. Chen Meng shook his head and chuckled. The planet is equivalent to a train built with the power of an entire civilization. How could the strength of an individual possibly compare? No need to despair. Sooner or later, there will be times when we need to dispatch small squads for missions. Besides, there will eventually be higher quality mechas for them. You don't need to worry. I'll go talk to him later and clear things up for him. Mining time always dragged on endlessly. By now, the planet had been stationed on this mineral planet for exactly 60 days. During those 60 days, the planet harvested countless resources of all kinds. With 1 million mining robots sweeping across the planet like a swarm of locusts, they stripped everything bare wherever they went. Resources on a mineral planet do not regenerate. So-called mineral planets are actually planets whose core energy has completely leaked out, forming countless mineral deposits on the surface. This was a one-time deal, but a massive one. So massive that it made Chen Meng a bit dizzy. Having too much money is sometimes a burden too. Just like that, in the day-to-day rhythm of life, another 300 days passed. The planet had been stationed on this mineral planet for a total of 360 days, almost a full year. Chen Meng didn't know what had happened out in the universe during this year, but inside the planet, earth-shattering changes had occurred. Chen Meng, with a face full of stubble, stood in the cabin, looking up at the hazy atmosphere covering the sky, his eyes a bit unfocused. He hadn't shaved in a very long time. Perhaps because he had too much free time lately, he got the idea to see what he would look like with a beard. Having lived 2 lifetimes, he had experienced everything, but growing a beard was the one thing he had never tried. He wasn't the type to grow a full beard. That couldn't be forced, so he could only grow a mustache and a goatee. After letting it grow for a while, it looked okay, just not very neat. He was thinking about something. Where were the dozens of shots from the Akanu main energy cannon that he fired on the Aqua Blue planet a year ago, flying right now? If they hadn't hit any debris, planets, or other random things along the way, they had probably flown nearly a light year by now. Honestly, that was still a very short distance in the universe. Chen Mang ended his wandering thoughts, stepped into the bathroom, and prepared to shave his beard. Consider it crossing off one untried experience. In the bathroom, Chen Mang stood before the mirror, lathered his face with foam, and casually said while shaving, "I guess today is the day we wrap this up, huh?" 10 minutes ago, the mineral deposits on the sun-facing side of this planet had been completely mined. Yeah, Chen Mang nodded slightly, looked at his face in the mirror, and suddenly burst into laughter. God really is a bit unfair to others. I don't even make a living off my looks. Giving me such high-tier handsomeness is truly a waste of heaven's gifts. His narcissism was completely natural, not forced at all. Since the mining is done, let's get ready to head out. He had already asked the Izhao Chamber of Commerce to return near the wormhole beforehand. Currently, they were quite a distance away from him, but still within the range of his enemy detection radar. After all, the planet's enemy detection radar had a scanning range of up to 0.1 light-years. Tally up all the resources. We'll do a full inventory after the enhancements are done. Then we'll go see what's so special about this Casa Civilization Alliance. Strictly speaking, he belonged to the category of cosmic wanderers. Entering the Casa Civilization Alliance was no different from an outsider stepping into a big city. Wherever there are many people, there is conflict. And when there's conflict, fists do the talking. This batch of resources would give him a lot of confidence, at least enough for him to speak up and say a few words. Relatively softly. 10 minutes later, the planet slowly ascended, then immediately accelerated, shooting straight toward the mineral planet's atmosphere. He didn't bring the 1 million mining robots with him. The number was too large, and the spatial gate couldn't hold them all. Leaving them temporarily on the mineral planet was fine. A few minutes later, the planet flew out of the atmosphere. The overall outline of the mineral planet was now visible to the naked eye. Half of this planet had been thoroughly mined, while the dark side couldn't be mined due to the extremely low temperature. In the very next moment, a massive wormhole suddenly appeared above the mineral planet. Like a snake swallowing an elephant, it directly swallowed the entire planet inside. A few minutes later, the mineral planet simply vanished from the universe, and the blip representing it on the star map flickered out. Excellent. Chen Mang smiled. Just now, he had spent 1.3 billion units of iron ore to create another level 200 spatial gate, simultaneously sucking this entire mineral planet inside. From now on, this mineral planet officially became his private property. The effect of the level 200 spatial gate was that it could suck in any planet with a diameter of less than 100,000 kilometers, provided it was an unowned planet, bearing no mark of another civilization. The dark side's temperature is too low to mine? That's no longer an issue. Once it entered his level 200 spatial gate, it would immediately be processed by the planetary cabin. Whatever temperature he wanted, he would get. Making the temperature too high wasn't possible, but setting a suitable temperature for mining was absolutely no problem. Just take it with him and mine it slowly. The 1 million mining robots left on the mineral planet were also retrieved back to the planet. Under the level 200 overpowered effect of the Robot Research Center, the cost to manufacture a mining robot was now only 156 units of iron ore. Absurdly cheap. Manufacturing 800,000 robots would only cost 1.2 billion units of iron ore. If he wanted to, he absolutely didn't need to stay on this mineral planet for 360 days. The mining time could have been drastically shortened. It was just that he intentionally gave himself a break. First, to relax his nerves that had been tense for too long. Second, to let himself and all the residents on the train gradually get used to a wandering life in space. Shall AI move the robot research center down to this mineral planet, spend 1.2 billion units of iron, or to manufacture another 8 million mining robots? Once the temperature on the dark side is restored, mine all the mineral deposits on the dark side of the planet. Understood. He named this spatial gate Mining Planet Number 1 because very soon he would be welcoming Mining Planet Number 2, 378 light-years away from here. There was still another mineral planet waiting for him to harvest. It was just a bit far away. His wormhole exploration device was currently only level 10, with a scanning range of just 10 light-years. It could only determine which spatial areas within that range tended to be stable and suitable as wormhole coordinate points. Before leaving, he had to upgrade this component first. Theoretically, if upgraded to level 200, the scanning range would only be 200 light-years. But based on his experience, once it reached level 200, a qualitative change from mortal to divine would inevitably occur. The scanning range would definitely exceed 378 light-years. The upgrade costs for 7-color components were not all the same. This component consumed much less than the Econo main energy cannon. Some components had almost identical consumption before level 100, but after level 100, the differences gradually became apparent. Upgrade. Currently, the train lacked nothing. Resources were the only thing in abundance. Chunmeng looked at the resource panel and grinned, the exact kind of smile a rich man would have. 1,493 billion units of iron ore, 1.12 billion units of wood, 353.49 billion units of copper ore, 19.4 billion units of crimson core rock, 60.87 billion units of refined titanium ore. This planet had a total of about 1.6 trillion units of mineral resources, of which 73% was iron ore. Plus the cyber mine, which was continuously generating resources after its expansion, the total amount of iron ore on the train had officially hit the trillion mark, reaching a massive 1,493 billion units. The remaining 27% of resources were mainly copper ore, followed by refined titanium ore, and finally crimson core rock. As for wood, there was absolutely none. After all, this was a dead planet. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't seem like a place where trees could grow. The next thing to do was to upgrade the wormhole exploration device. Chunmeng wasn't sure how other civilizations created long-distance wormholes, but for him, if he didn't upgrade this component, he fundamentally couldn't determine the exact drop point. Upgrade. Chunmeng stood in place, expressionless. Just now, he had spent 80 billion units of iron ore to upgrade the wormhole exploration device to level 100. But when he saw the cost to upgrade it to level 200, he fell completely silent. To upgrade to level 200, it required nearly 750 billion units of iron ore. Good lord, he had enough resources, but it wasn't really necessary. What if there wasn't a stable spatial area near that mineral planet to create a wormhole? Then it would be a completely useless upgrade. If it only cost 200 or 300 billion units of iron ore, he would have dared to risk it. But 750 billion? Forget it. Wouldn't it be more practical to use that iron ore to upgrade the armor? If the gamble failed, this trip would be a total waste. The scanning range of the level 100 wormhole exploration device was 100 light-years, and it gained 3 super effects. Level 20 super effect halves the consumption when creating a wormhole. Level 50 super effect, wormhole stability rate reaches 100%. Level 100 super effect can create stealth wormholes that are extremely difficult to detect. In that case, the plan had to change. He wouldn't go to the mineral planet 378 light-years away anymore. Instead, he would head directly to the Casa Civilization Alliance with Chiu Yizhao and his crew. Before that, he needed to give the train a proper upgrade. With over 1 trillion units of iron ore in hand, he intended to spend it all. First was the armor, the green quality component, train steel armor. This was the most important component, directly related to his life. After spending 1,102.3 billion units of iron ore, the armor was upgraded straight to level 100. Now there was nothing left to say. Demons, monsters, or the Casa Civilization Alliance. Bring it on. With level 100 armor laid out, Anyone who comes will have to obediently shut their mouths. Offense could wait, but defense absolutely had to be maxed out first. Upgrading the armor from level 30 to level 100 in one breath also granted 2 super effects. Level 50 super effect. The surface is coated with stealth paint. When scanned, the terrain and component levels can be custom defined. The maximum displayed level cannot exceed the actual level. Level 100 super effect. The surface is coated with anti-cold paint, allowing normal movement in low-temperature environments down to -272 degrees Celsius. Simultaneously, all external components of the terrain enjoy the defensive capabilities of the armor. Both of these effects were extremely useful. The level 50 effect helped him continue keeping a low profile, avoiding a situation where, right after setting foot in the Casa Civilization Alliance, a level 27 mechanical train carrying level 100 armor would be dragged away to be used as a test subject. The level 100 effect ensured he could brazenly travel through deep space. Previously, the area he operated in was still within the sphere of influence of a star. Even though it was an old star, the temperature wasn't too low. But the vast majority of the universe was absolute darkness with extremely low temperatures. With this effect, he could basically walk sideways through most areas. Now it's safe. Qin looked at the data on the control screen with a satisfied smile. The train also had a level 10 energy shield. In extreme situations, after activating the special skill Absolute Defense, the defensive strength could briefly reach level 110. Continuing to upgrade this energy shield would be too expensive and not really worth it, so Qin had no intention of touching it anymore. In the blink of an eye, the planet had shifted from a state of high offense and low defense to high defense and low offense. After this series of upgrades, the remaining iron ore was only 310.7 billion units. However, everything was well worth it. The planet currently had mining planet number 1, the Cyber Mine, and the Aqua Blue planet, all of which could continuously supply iron ore. After arriving at the Casa Civilization Alliance, he also planned to see if there were any opportunities to score another mineral planet. The next step, of course, was to find Xiao Yizhao and prepare to enter the Casa Civilization Alliance together. After adjusting the armor's displayed level down to level 25, Qin piloted the planet straight toward Xiao Yizhao's location. Estimated time of arrival at the designated coordinates, 54 hours and 17 minutes. The planet was set to autopilot and began moving on its own. Meanwhile, Qin sat in the cabin, looking at the remaining iron ore and started calculating. A single shot from the level 50 Akanu main energy cannon cost 5 billion units of iron ore. Including other miscellaneous expenses, the train needed to reserve at least 100 billion units of iron ore. This was the bare minimum. In addition, he had to set aside iron ore for creating wormholes, just in case they encountered danger and had no way to escape. Thus, he could freely spend the remaining 200 billion units of iron ore. Qin decided to upgrade a few minor components first to see exactly what the level 200 God-tier super effects looked like. At the top of the list, naturally, was the refrigerator. If he had to rank the MVPs from the beginning until now, Qin felt the refrigerator would at least be in the top 3. Its role was incredibly massive. Kuan Yu would definitely be in the top 5. Although he didn't help much, it was an angel investment. The significance was completely different. It was just a pity that, like most angel investments, once the mission was completed, they were usually discarded. Kuan Yu was no exception. Thinking of this, Qin even thought to himself that he should light a few incense sticks for Kuan Yu someday, considering it repaying the favor from back then. Upgrading a green quality component to level 200 consumed very few resources. The refrigerator in his cabin had previously been upgraded to level 100. This time, he spent another 800 million units of iron ore, pushing it straight to level 200. The level 200 super effect of the refrigerator. All level 200 refrigerators manufactured by the planet can freely connect through space, regardless of distance. Qin silently looked at this effect. He seemed to have figured out a pattern. Components that had absurd super effects right from the start would only have even more absurd super effects when upgraded to level 200. This is really a bit too much. In essence, this thing is no different from a permanent two-way wormhole with a 100% stability rate. As long as the refrigerator isn't destroyed, it will exist forever. Moreover, it's not just a point-to-point connection. As long as enough level 200 refrigerators are manufactured, a complex transportation network can absolutely be formed. This time, it couldn't just be called not bad. It was incredibly good. Chen loved it. Furthermore, he could set permissions. For someone with permission, opening the refrigerator could reveal a 100 square meter room or a passageway connecting to other level 200 refrigerators. For someone without permission, opening it would only reveal a normal refrigerator. A top-tier stealth effect indeed. He could even have someone gift a refrigerator to the Casa Civilization Alliance, pulling off a literal Trojan horse move. Who would ever think that an entire mecha army was hidden inside a refrigerator? It sounded absurd, but in his hands, it seemed very reasonable. Chen Mang's gaze left the refrigerator and landed on the single bed in the corner of the room. He narrowed his eyes. After spending 500 million units of wood, this bed was also upgraded to level 200. The effect of the level 200 single bed, when lying on the bed, one will achieve absolute tranquility of the soul. Chen Mang frowned. This effect didn't seem like the super effects he had imagined. Compared to the refrigerator, the gap was too obvious. What the hell is absolute tranquility of the soul? He walked over and lay down on the bed. The moment his back touched the bed, he clearly felt his inner self become completely still. There were no more superfluous thoughts. He even felt like he was entering a state of nothingness. No desires, no distracting thoughts, as if his six senses had been completely purified. But in the very next second, Chen Mang sprang up and kicked this single bed right into the refrigerator. Then, he spent another 508,000 units of wood to craft a new level 100 single bed for himself. What the hell is this demonic thing? Humans are a culmination of desires. The moment he lay on it, he felt like he had died. Not just dead for a day, but dead for 1,000 years. Not a single thought remained in his mind. It seems not every god-tier super effect is usable. Right at that moment, Xiao AI's voice echoed in the cabin. Conductor, there's a problem over at the cyber mine. I need you to come take a look. What's the situation? Chen Mang frowned and stepped out of the cabin. What kind of problem could possibly happen at the cyber mine? The planet, carriage number 10. Inside the level 100 spatial gate named the cyber mine, countless level 100 single beds were currently placed. During this period, due to the surging number of residents on the planet, 4,222 dreamstones could be crafted every day. Over the course of a year mining on the mineral planet, the planet had accumulated a total of 100,000 dreamstones. That's right, 100,000 stones, not millions. Because of this, the cyber mine was expanded to a scale of 24,000 machines. Every day, it could stably yield about 20 level 9 iron ores, which equated to 20 billion units of iron ore. Within a year, the amount of iron ore obtained through the cyber mine had exceeded 300 billion units. This number was by no means small. By now, the cyber mine had become an incredibly important source of iron ore revenue for the planet. All cyber miners enjoyed level 1 resident benefits, granting them the right to permanent residency on the planet. On the aqua blue planet, they were even allocated independent villas, and their daily wages were extremely generous. This was a lucrative position that almost all residents dreamed of. The majority of the miners were selected from the survivors on the aqua blue planet, mainly strong young men. Chen Mang stood at the entrance of the spatial gate, his expression a bit grim as he watched Zhang Yi rushing over. Carrying medical pods, they placed several severely injured, comatose residents inside one by one. Master Mang. Zhang Yi looked up at Chen Mang, his voice urgent. A total of 4 miners are severely injured. The estimated treatment cost is nearly 40 million units of iron ore. Treat them, Chen Mang replied curtly. He didn't care about the iron ore. What concerned him more was that the cyber mine was extremely important. Logically speaking, cyber miners should be in a state of absolute safety. Yet, such severe casualties suddenly occurred, and the treatment cost was not low either. Very quickly, the 4 miners who were just on the brink of death stepped out of the medical pods one by one. Although their faces were still pale, they could walk normally. You. Chen Mang spotted a familiar face among them and asked, Damao, right? Tell me, what exactly happened? How did you get injured? Yes. Damao was slightly stunned when he saw Chen Mang. Then his expression immediately became excited. It had been a long time since he last saw Master Mang, and he never expected the other party to still remember his name. After steadying his emotions, he hurriedly explained, "It's like this, Master Mang. I was mining in the dreamscape as usual, but this time, I don't know if there was a glitch on Xiao AI's end. In the dreamscape, there wasn't just the mineral deposit and the pickaxe. There also appeared an armed robot. The moment that robot saw me, it immediately opened fire. After that, my vision just went black. When I woke up, I was already lying in the medical pod." The other three also nodded repeatedly, indicating that their situations were exactly the same. "It wasn't me." Xiao AI, standing nearby, saw Chen Mang's gaze shift toward her and hurriedly shook her head to explain. "I couldn't possibly make such a low-level mistake. The dreamscape I create absolutely cannot contain anything other than mineral deposits and pickaxes, let alone an armed robot." Chen Mang didn't say anything, just slightly narrowed his eyes. In his heart, he had roughly figured out the problem. The mineral deposits in the dreamscape weren't entirely illusions, they actually existed. Previously, they had been mining unowned deposits. This time, they clearly dug straight into someone else's territory and were casually dealt with by the guard robots. Now that he knew the cause, he was no longer worried. What he cared about most was whether the cyber mine could continue operating. If it could still continue, then this was just a small probability event. "All right, I have a rough idea of what happened." Chen Meng looked at Mao and smiled. "Keep up the good work. You are the mine supervisor of this cyber mine. I'm leaving it in your hands." "Master Meng." Mao's voice trembled, his face full of excitement. "You're so busy, yet you still remember me." "Nonsense." Chen Meng waved his hand, a bit displeased. "I appointed you personally. How could I not remember? When Xiao AI issued the appointment notice, didn't it have my name on it? I thought that was just a standard procedure." Chen Meng didn't say anything more, turning around and leaving the area. Currently, the cyber mine had a total of 24,000 mining machines. The amount of dreamstones was completely sufficient, even a bit surplus, since it only consumed over 20 stones a day anyway. It was just that the wood used to craft single beds was running low. The initial billions of units of wood were now down to a few hundred million. He needed to find a new source of wood. Besides that, the civilization level probably really needed to be considered for an upgrade. Logically speaking, crafting over 4,000 dreamstones a day should have accumulated millions of stones after a year. But the control screen clearly displayed that the current civilization level capped the maximum number of dreamstones that could exist simultaneously at 100,000. This meant that the scale of the cyber mine was hardlocked. Even with enough wood, it couldn't be expanded indefinitely unless he chose to upgrade the civilization level. It's just that a level 1 civilization was still too dangerous. Currently, he hadn't completed the reconstruction of his civilization. In essence, they were still the remnants of an exiled civilization in space. Anyway, 100,000 dreamstones were enough for now. He would think about upgrading later. Only when the civilization level broke through level 1 would this limit be relaxed. Time flew by, and 54 hours passed in a flash. Chen Meng sat in the cabin of the planet, already able to see the fleet of the Yizhao Chamber of Commerce with his naked eye. As he approached, a man wearing a spacesuit detached from the lead ship, using thrusters to fly straight toward the planet. That person was Qiu Yizhao. Very quickly, Qiu Yizhao stepped into the cabin, looking at Chen Meng with a sincere and grateful expression. "Senior, my daughter has always said she wants to meet you in person to express her gratitude." A few days ago, this senior had sent him 10 billion units of iron ore. He spent 4 billion of it to cure his daughter's illness using the medical pod. It was just that within those grateful eyes, there was still a hint of doubt and confusion. The last time they met, the defensive energy range of Senior's train was around 3,000, yet this time it had dropped to 2,500. Could this thing actually decrease? Or was the energy shield broken and a new one had to be crafted? Chen Meng looked at Qiu Yizhao, expressionless. He stayed silent for a long time before slowly asking, "Last time you said that when we enter the planets of the Casa Civilization Alliance, there are absolutely no inspections, right?" "Yes," Qiu Yizhao replied very carefully. "The Casa Civilization Alliance has nearly 10,000 civilizations, and the population is extremely massive. Most planets don't have checkpoints set up. Only a few central planets have very strict identity checks. A status like yours, senior, is classified as an exiled civilization. Xiao Yizhao paused for a moment before continuing. The majority of space pirates come from exiled civilizations. After their civilizations are destroyed, they wander the universe and eventually turn into pirates. Oh, Shen Meng nodded, then pointed at the newly crafted refrigerator in the corner of the cabin. After the wormhole is activated, you guys go in first. If there are no Casa Civilization Alliance checkpoints around, open the door of this refrigerator and step inside. Understood? Understood. Xiao Yizhao looked at the refrigerator in the corner with a bit of confusion. Although he completely didn't understand what was going on, he still obediently carried the refrigerator out of the planet and flew back to his own ship. Not long after, in front of the fleet, the pitch-black space began to twist like physical matter under an invisible force. A wormhole entrance gradually appeared, shimmering with mysterious starlight, looking like the elongated neck of an hourglass. The exit at the end of the wormhole faintly appeared like a distant speck of light. This was the second strategic stealth wormhole coordinate in this area. Xiao Yizhao's fleet quickly assembled, then entered the wormhole one by one. They had to be fast, because a single-use wormhole is only absolutely stable right after activation. After that, it could dissipate at any moment. It could be 10 minutes, or it could be 100,000 years. It was completely random. No one could predict it. Shen Meng stood in the cabin, silently watching Xiao Yizhao and his crew disappear into the wormhole. Xiao Yizhao only possessed 13 strategic stealth wormhole coordinates of the Casa Civilization Alliance. The actual information was extremely limited. The only thing certain was that this wormhole led into the Federation's territory. As for exactly where it led, that was unknown. As long as it didn't lead straight into a military base, it was fine. Otherwise, it would literally be throwing themselves into the jaws of death. Very quickly, less than half a minute had passed. The refrigerator door in the cabin was suddenly pushed open. Xiao Yizhao stepped out from inside, his face full of shock. Looking around at the familiar layout, he swallowed hard. He rubbed his eyes vigorously before confirming that Shen Meng was sitting right there. His voice trembled as he spoke. Senior, everything is safe. No one knew just how massive of a shock the scene just now had given him. He clearly knew that refrigerator was just a normal train component, even a white-quality one at that. But why did opening the door lead directly back to Senior's train? This was crossing tens of thousands of light years, and there was absolutely no sensation of passing through a wormhole. And everyone knew that the human body fundamentally couldn't pass directly through a wormhole. Shen Meng nodded slightly, still not completely letting his guard down. He pushed the control stick, piloting the planet into the single-use wormhole ahead. Inside the wormhole, countless streaks of light flashed by rapidly. After just a few dozen seconds, the endpoint appeared right before their eyes. Upon exiting the wormhole, they once again entered space. This place was already deep within the territory of the Casa Civilization Alliance, very far away from the Zerg civilization. The scene before him broadened even Shen Meng's horizons. The star map couldn't display details to this extent. Only by being here in person could one clearly feel what a true civilization alliance was like. Ahead was a massive star, radiating abundant light and heat. Orbiting around it were over 60 planets, each one a habitable planet. The sight was incredibly shocking. It wasn't like this before. Xiao Yizhao opened his mouth to explain. After the Casa civilization established the Federation, they gathered the mother planets of the surrounding civilizations into the same star system. This star system is called Star System Number 27. Among them is a planet named the Choa planet. Our Choa civilization is located there. The planets of the Federation do not have checkpoints set up. Xiao Yizhao hesitated for a moment, then said, Senior, how about coming to my place to hang out for a bit? Shen Meng nodded. Then let's go check out your place. Having just arrived, it was best to find a discreet place to lay low first, grasp the situation, and then plan the next move. Having a local lead the way was naturally a good thing. Xiao Yizhao looked at the star map on the screen and frowned slightly. This place is still quite a distance from the star system. It might take us a very long time to get there. I'll go first. No need. I have a way. 30 minutes later, the planet dashed straight toward the star system ahead. It looked close at hand, but in reality, it still required quite a bit of time. Xiao Yizao's entire fleet was tethered to the back of the planet by a single strand of hair, sharing its movement speed. This scene doesn't really look like the 9 dragons pulling the coffin I imagined. Chen Meng sat in his chair, looking at the image displayed on the screen, and sighed softly. He thought he would be the coffin, not the dragon. But whatever, it was acceptable. This strand of hair was actually the anal hair he had obtained in the dreamscape previously. Xiao Ai had checked the data. This hair could stretch up to 10,000 kilometers, absolutely absurd, and was incredibly durable, capable of bearing an immense amount of weight. Exactly how much weight it could bear hadn't been precisely tested, but pulling a few trains was clearly a piece of cake. Before leaving, Chen Meng casually fired another cannon shot, directly crushing that single-use wormhole into pieces. Leaving no trace behind, he dusted off his hands and left, as clean as if he had never been there. 48 hours later, the planet's speed slowed down, dropping to the speed of a normal train, and simultaneously retracted the hair. It quietly blended into the fleet of the Yizhao Chamber of Commerce, looking exactly like an unknown member, so low profile that no one would notice it if they didn't pay attention. By now, they had entered the star system and were passing through the vicinity of several planets. All around them were countless trains, spaceships, and shuttles constantly traveling back and forth between the planets. The bustling scene made one feel as if they had just stepped into a modern metropolis in the middle of space. Even though Chen Meng didn't want to look like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world, the scene before him was truly captivating. Compared to the area near the aqua blue planet, where space was as empty as a lifeless graveyard, this place was clearly brimming with vitality. The difference was like night and day. Under Qiu Yizao's guidance, the fleet slowly approached a planet and headed straight into its atmosphere. As soon as they passed through the atmosphere, a small spaceship immediately flew over to lead the way, guiding the entire fleet to land at a massive train station. Right at that moment, in the cabin, Qiu Yizao pushed open the refrigerator door and walked in, standing behind Chen Meng. With a hint of excitement in his eyes, he introduced that this was his homeland, the Qiuha civilization. The Qiuha civilization had a total of 128 train stations. All trains and spaceships entering this planet had to land at one of them. There were over 170 ships lining up ahead, and it would soon be their turn. The majority of them were merchant guilds or tourists. Chen Meng looked at the scene before him, couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The planning here was extremely standardized. The ground was clearly marked with runways, and each train moved according to the instructions to leave the station. Around the station, large anti-air turrets were densely deployed. Just one look and you knew their firepower was no joke. Even though it was only a level 1 civilization, at least on the surface, it looked very proper. However, based on the data from the enemy detection radar, these trains were all pitifully weak. Added together, they wouldn't even be enough for him to warm up. Thinking of this, Chen Meng casually asked, "Did you just say tourists? I remember you mentioning a cultivation civilization that specialized in tourism. Does your civilization also follow this path?" Qiu Yizao immediately nodded. Actually, many civilizations develop tourism and commerce. Although joining the Federation means being managed, in return, commerce between civilizations becomes exponentially more prosperous, and the development speed is much faster. This planet's tourism project is called Exotic Charms. A few years ago, the civilization's leaders spent a massive amount of resources, effort, and time to invite tens of thousands of beautiful girls from various level 1 civilizations within the Casa Civilization Alliance to settle here. In the Qiuha civilization, you can meet girls from any civilization. The exotic charm is so strong that many people come here specifically looking for a fleeting romance. Chen Meng glanced at him and asked bluntly, "Prostitution?" Qiu Yizao hurriedly shook his head. "No, it's just a commitment. As long as a girl comes to the Qiuha civilization, she will enjoy excellent resident benefits." Chen Meng nodded slightly, understanding clearly in his heart. At the end of the day, it was just a form of attracting talent. It's just that the talent was relatively eye-catching. The planet blended into the Yizhao Chamber of Commerce's formation, left the train station, and sped along the highway. On both sides was an empty wilderness, with a few trains occasionally flying through the air. Qiu Yizhao had returned to his own ship, while Chen Meng opened the legal regulations of the Chioha civilization that he had sent over. If these rules were violated, one would be arrested by the Chioha civilization's law enforcement bureau. Chen Meng naturally wasn't afraid, but he had no interest in causing unnecessary trouble either. The laws weren't many and were quite simple. But when he looked up at the mechanical train flying at an altitude of over 3,000 meters in the sky, he still couldn't help but grab the walkie-talkie and ask, "Doesn't your civilization have a rule that mechanical trains flying in the air cannot exceed 3,000 meters? The one above us has clearly exceeded it. Is no one going to do anything about it?" Qiu Yizhao's voice came through the walkie-talkie, sounding a bit awkward. "That's a ship from a level 2 civilization, the Atom civilization. Our laws mainly bind the people of this civilization and other level 1 civilizations. As for level 2 civilizations, as long as they don't go on a random killing spree, we usually turn a blind eye." Chen Meng asked further, "Then what if it's the level 3 Casa civilization?" Qiu Yizhao smiled bitterly. "If people from the level 3 Casa civilization come, they are literally our grandpas. Let alone breaking the law. Even if they slaughtered an entire city, the leaders would have to force a smile and say, 'Good kill.' If anything happened to them here, the Casa civilization's grand army would arrive immediately. How domineering." Chen Meng looked up at the ship flying further away, couldn't help but sigh in his heart. That ship was just as weak as Qiu Yizhao's, but simply because it was backed by a level 2 civilization, it could be so arrogant, and no one dared to interfere. It's true that in the universe, the strong have privileges wherever they go, while the weak just have to get used to it. Through the walkie-talkie, Qiu Yizhao continued to remind him, "Many people from level 2 civilizations like to come to the Chioha planet to play. It's best if we stay away from them. Those guys like to come to level 1 civilizations to find a sense of superiority. To be blunt, most of them are losers in their own homes. Decent people are busy upgrading their trains and building their careers. Who has the free time to run around causing trouble?" Chen Meng didn't reply. He just maintained a steady speed, quietly following the fleet. Having just arrived, he had no intention of causing trouble. Anyway, he just wanted to drive properly on the ground, not fly in the sky, and not show off his strength. Surely there wouldn't be some bored idiot coming to his door looking for trouble, right? He looked down at the screen, which displayed an introduction to the Chioha civilization. The data showed that this civilization was 99.8% urbanized. There were absolutely no villages or communes. It was entirely made up of cities. A total of 398 cities combined housed the entire population of this civilization. To be more precise, most civilizations in the era of rampant trains were like this, absolutely urbanized. When trains could travel anywhere, villages lost their meaning of existence, and communes were even more unnecessary. A pink sun. Chen Meng tilted his head to look at the pale pink sun hanging in the sky, leaned back in his chair, lit a cigarette, and chuckled. He really liked this feeling of exploring different civilizations. But before that, he needed to know exactly what this civilization's strongest trump card was, to determine where his level 100 armor stood in their power system. Only knowing how to strengthen oneself without understanding how far others have developed is, frankly speaking, quite dangerous. The pink sun looked very beautiful, carrying a different kind of charm. At least it didn't hurt the eyes when looked at for a long time. No incidents occurred along the way. Chen Meng drove the planet, following the fleet along the highway. About 2 hours later, they entered the suburbs of an extremely prosperous city. This planet had a speed limit. Otherwise, with the planet's speed, saying they would arrive in the time it takes to sneeze might be a bit of an exaggeration, but sneezing a few times would definitely get them close. "Senior," Qiu Yizhao's voice came from the train's radio walkie-talkie. "The Chioha civilization manages trains very strictly. Except for the trains of certain leaders and the Law Enforcement Bureau, all other trains are only allowed to park in the suburbs. The parking lot charges by the day 1,000 units of iron ore per day. Furthermore, you are not allowed to carry any weapons or firearms on your person." The other party spoke very carefully, as if emphasizing something extremely important. In reality, it was exactly like that. For a train conductor, almost all of their combat power lay in their train. Leaving the train meant being completely unarmed and vulnerable, with zero sense of security. Saying it was handing one's life over to others was no exaggeration. However, Chunmeng just replied very calmly, "Lead the way to the parking lot." Actually, he had a special item called the Hell Helmet. Within a 10,000-meter radius of the train, he could enjoy defense equivalent to the train's armor. It was just that he rarely used this thing, mainly because he didn't like putting himself in dangerous situations. He definitely had to enter the city ahead, because a city is the communication hub of a civilization. Only by stepping into the city could he gather more information and clearly feel the scope and depth of that civilization. A distance of 10,000 meters was clearly not enough, but fortunately, he had the refrigerator. Within the range of the enemy detection radar, the refrigerator could enjoy defense equivalent to the train's armor. And his radar range was up to 0.1 light years, more than enough to cover this entire planet with room to spare. Add to that the super effect of the level 200 refrigerator, which allowed him to freely travel between different refrigerators. As long as he was a little careful, there normally wouldn't be any problems, unless the entire city exploded in an instant, leaving him no time to react. But the chances of that were very low. With Xiao AI guarding the train and the enemy detection radar fully active, any abnormal movement would hardly escape surveillance. The danger level had already been suppressed to a very low point. 30 minutes later, the planet followed the Yizhou Chamber of Commerce's fleet and drove into an abandoned warehouse far from the city, which looked like it had been converted from an old granary. As the warehouse doors slowly opened, a large amount of dust flew up in a cloud. The trains entered one by one. This warehouse was extremely spacious. Every ship inside had already expanded its capacity. Their height was basically on par with the planet. To be able to hold so many ships, its scale was definitely not small. It was just that the planet was too long. It took quite a bit of time to maneuver. In the end, it even had to turn around inside the warehouse and fold itself up just to barely fit in. Chen Meng, along with Lao Zhu, Biaozi, and the others, stepped off the train. Standing on the dust-covered warehouse floor, he stomped his feet a few times, then looked up at the dilapidated ceiling and smiled. It had been a very long time since he last felt this kind of grounded reality. He truly hadn't left the planet in a long time. Places like the mineral planet weren't easy to set foot on. Walking just a few steps was painful. And the aqua blue planet didn't count, as he already considered it a part of the planet. The feeling of setting foot on the ground this time wasn't bad. The gravity was basically the same as the aqua blue planet. The air quality wasn't much different either, making it extremely easy to adapt. Right at that moment, Xiao Yizhou walked over from the side, looking a bit embarrassed as he explained that the paid parking lot was too expensive. Usually, only outsiders parked there. Locals all found an abandoned warehouse to park their trains. The only downside was that it was a bit far from the city, taking some extra travel time. Chun Meng swept his gaze around the inside of the warehouse, then walked to the door with Biaozi and the others. He spread his arms, looking out at the desolate suburbs before him, and took a deep breath with a relaxed expression. He really liked this grounded feeling. Then, he pulled out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. Tilting his head to look at Xiao Yizhou, he smiled and said, "If it's not mandatory to park in the parking lot, then parking anywhere in the suburbs is fine too, right? Our trains shouldn't be so fragile that a little rain would ruin them, right?" He originally planned to park according to the rules, but when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Besides, saving 1,000 iron ores a day wasn't a bad thing. After all, money saved is still money earned. That's a no. Xiao Yizhou shook his head. The government of the Choha civilization doesn't allow trains to park randomly in the suburbs. The reason is that it affects the planet's aesthetics. It doesn't present a good image to the outside world. I have motorcycles on my ship, Chen Meng. We can ride them into the city. But once we're in the city, don't call me senior anymore. Just call me Chen Meng. Keeping a low profile makes life easier. This. Xiao Yizhou stood frozen, reflexively glancing at the guild brothers gathering in the distance. Then he looked at the over 100 burly men in uniform standing behind Chen Meng, exuding a menacing, fierce aura. It took him a moment before he awkwardly opened his mouth. Chen Meng. Bringing a lineup like this into the city makes it really hard to call it keeping a low profile. Makes sense. Shin Mang turned his head to glance behind him, thought for a moment, and said casually, Biaozi, tell everyone to get back on the train. Just you, Lao Zhu, and the Zhang brothers coming with me is enough. The atmosphere immediately lightened up. Qiu Yizhao breathed a sigh of relief. That's much better. What about the brothers in your guild? They usually split up to handle their own tasks for the guild. They only gather together when there's something major. What about the people inside the ships? Shin Mang asked further. You mean the subordinates? They all signed long-term contracts with the ships. They eat, live, and work inside the ships, almost never leaving them. I see. The wind whipped up clouds of dust. Shin Mang's group, guided by Qiu Yizhao, headed straight toward the outskirts of this modern city. When they drove onto the main road, before even entering the city, a long line had already formed ahead for inspection. However, the clearance speed was surprisingly fast. Shin Mang rode his motorcycle, observing the hovering vehicles in front and behind him as he drove, his eyes full of curiosity. These things looked like cars, but hovered close to the ground. The sci-fi vibe was so strong that it made him want to buy one immediately just to play with. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but chuckle. That's right, one of the main goals of this trip was exactly that, spending money. The currency among the civilizations in the Casa Civilization Alliance was absolutely unified, iron ore. Of course, when trading with merchants, other types of resources could also be used as substitutes. It wasn't that no civilization wanted to issue their own currency. It was just almost impossible to implement. Compared to iron ore, no currency was more stable. Whether in times of war or peace, iron ore wouldn't suddenly depreciate or collapse. If you didn't want to use physical currency, there were alternatives. For example, every citizen of Sanshui City owned a wristwatch. They could deposit iron ore into the bank and digitize it right on the watch, making transactions extremely convenient. However, this method was mainly used by locals. Most tourists still preferred carrying physical iron ore on them for peace of mind. Shin Mang's spending goal for today was 10 million units of iron ore. He planned to buy all sorts of things, from agricultural seeds to other miscellaneous items. Very quickly, as the line of vehicles moved forward, Shin Mang arrived at a place that looked like a highway toll booth. Spotlights on both walls swept red beams over him. Immediately after, lines of text appeared on the screen next to him. Scan complete. Civilization less wanderer. Life level, 0, no lockdown required. Entry permitted. Chioha Civilization, 8th main city, Sanshui City welcomes you. Wishing you a smooth and happy stay. Please abide by the laws and respect local customs. In case of emergency, you can call the mayor's hotline at 237-7998 via your wristwatch or a public phone. The indicator light turned green, and the barrier ahead opened. Shin Mang lightly twisted the throttle, riding his motorcycle out of the checkpoint. Just as Qiu Yizhao had said, his status was a civilization-less wanderer. Once one's own civilization is destroyed, the individual becomes a wanderer and cannot casually join another civilization. To reintegrate, there are only two paths. First, rebuild your own civilization. Second, have children with someone from another civilization. The child born will automatically carry the other party's civilization mark, and after a few generations, they will be completely integrated. The civilization mark is something derived from the operating rules of the universe. It cannot be faked. The leader of a civilization will possess a civilization seal, which only they themselves can use. As long as this seal is stamped on an unowned planet, that planet will be recorded as belonging to your civilization on the galactic map. The process is extremely simple. The only condition is, you must be strong enough not to be casually killed by others. The civilization mark is also used in many other areas, such as when creating wormholes. As long as you upgrade to a level 1 civilization, you can possess it. Shin Mang temporarily had no intention of rebuilding his civilization, because in this area, doing so would require undergoing an inspection by the Casa Civilization Alliance. If you pass the inspection, you join the Federation. If you fail, or if you are deemed too high of a risk or lacking existential value, the Federation will directly, casually annihilate you. Thinking of this, he only saw one thing clearly. Although being a wanderer meant having no status, at least he still had freedom. And freedom in this universe was already a kind of luxury. In other words, only when you hold the civilization seal in your hands. Do you truly step onto the chessboard of cosmic civilization struggles, officially participating in this grand contest for supremacy? It is both a pass to a bright future and a one-way ticket straight to hell. Not long after leaving the checkpoint, Chen Meng officially entered the city named Sanshui City. He stood in the middle of the street, leaning on his kickstand, quietly observing the flow of pedestrians and the bustling traffic on the road. Standing here, he didn't feel out of place among the crowd at all. Not because his attire blended in perfectly, but because there are too many weirdos here. Compared to them, him just leaning on a cane is really nothing noteworthy. Across the street, there's even a guy walking upside down on his head, hopping along. Just looking at it hurts. Chen Meng let out a soft breath, a hint of complexity flashing across his face. Over a year ago, he witnessed the destruction of a civilization with his own eyes. It was the heaven-slaying civilization, which had just advanced to a level 1 civilization, only to be wiped out in the blink of an eye by the Zerg civilization. Back then, looking at the galactic map, he didn't really feel much. It was just a planet disappearing, a civilization's name being erased. On the entire map, there were countless such planets. One more or one less, nobody would even care. But truly standing here, in a city belonging to a level 1 civilization like the peace-seeking civilization, he clearly felt the cruelty of the struggle between civilizations. Everything before his eyes, the high-rises, the pedestrians, the trains running on the streets, could turn into nothingness in an instant, vanishing from this world. Billions of lives would be buried. The history, culture, technology, and every trace of this civilization's existence would be wiped clean, leaving nothing behind. And no one would care. The aqua blue planet had been rebuilt quite well over the past year, but according to calculations, it would become a dead star within 2 years. In that time, he had to find a new habitable planet and stuff it straight into the train. Qiu Yizhao and the others had left. After being apart for so long, Chen Meng let them reunite with their families first. If there were any issues, they would contact him later. Before parting ways, Qiu Yizhao left him a phone number, which could be reached using a smartwatch or a public phone of this civilization. Let's go. Chen Meng didn't dwell on it anymore. Leaning on his cane, he followed the crowd along the street, his gaze sweeping over the dazzling shops on both sides. Zhang Yi and Zhang Er were each carrying a refrigerator on their shoulders, their eyes vigilantly scanning the surroundings, on guard against any potential danger. Anyone could die, but Boss Meng couldn't. Once Boss Meng died, everything would instantly collapse. The Starfarer alone would be immediately scrapped, its energy source completely cut off. Without the Starfarer's cargo hold, the Aqua Blue planet would truly face doomsday. Their younger sister wouldn't survive either. The peace-seeking civilization was vigorously developing tourism, but not every city was a tourist city, and Sanshui City was one of them. There were many people from other civilizations in the city. Humanoid beings made up the majority, about 60%. At most, they differed in height and skin color, but their overall shape was still human. The other 40% came in all shapes and sizes. Staring too long made it feel like wandering into an inter-civilization biological exhibition. That's the Scallion civilization. Chen Meng turned to look at a man who had just walked past him, immediately opening his tablet to look up information, his eyes stopping at an introduction. Scallion civilization. The beings of this civilization grow a scallion on their heads, which is an extremely sensitive physiological organ. At a critical moment, they can pull it out and use it to rapidly heal all injuries on their body. It only works on themselves and cannot regenerate. The beings of this civilization absolutely love eating scallions, and even broke through their technological barriers because of it. According to the Casa Civilization Federation statistics, there are currently only 3 types of train components related to scallions. One was excavated from the ruins of the mechanical civilization in very small quantities. The other 2 were developed by the Scallion civilization with all their might, ensuring that trains always have fresh and sufficient scallions during space travel. 13 years ago, the Scallion civilization tried releasing the component blueprints to the market, but the results were too tragic to look at. This civilization owns a total of 2 planets. One is for living, and the other is exclusively for researching and growing various types of scallions. Truly miraculous. Chen Meng looked up at the man with a scallion on his head walking away, muttering with an indescribable expression. A very dangerous thought even flashed through his mind. Catch one and raise it on the train. Thinking of this, he shook his head, feeling that he was drifting further and further away from human moral standards. He had just bought this tablet from a store. It compiled basic information and characteristics of most recorded civilizations. From this, it was clear that the Scallion civilization was extremely united. Their level of unity could even be described as terrifying. Data showed that for a level 1 civilization to create a component blueprint was already as hard as ascending to heaven. Yet this civilization not only did it, but they made two, even if they were only white-grade components. Without absolute unity, this would have been fundamentally impossible. Besides the tablet, Chen Meng also bought a smartwatch for himself and 4 translators for Biaozi and the others, spending a total of 6,000 units of iron ore. Compared to his plan to spend 10 million today, this amount could only be considered a warm-up. The price of the smartwatch really wasn't cheap, a whole 2,000 units of iron ore. It was the classic case of selling convenience, but charging a premium. Boss Meng. Biaozi, walking beside him, suddenly thought of something and said with a weird expression, "If that scallion is their most sensitive physiological organ, then if they get heavily injured, wouldn't they have to choose between dying and being castrated?" Not to that extent. Lao Zhu shook his head and explained, "It's just the most sensitive. It doesn't affect reproduction. At worst, things just won't feel the same as before." To put it bluntly, this civilization's scallions can only be used on themselves. Otherwise, I don't think they would have survived until now. Not necessarily, Chen Meng said while flipping through the information on the tablet. The Scallion civilization might not have been wiped out purely because the mechanical civilization's methods were gentle enough. He stopped at a page of data and continued reading. According to records, the Scallion civilization once had an extremely humiliating period of history originating from the mechanical civilization. A long time ago, after discovering this trait, the mechanical civilization captured many people from the Scallion civilization to conduct extremely cruel experiments. Combining it with other technologies, they developed the original blueprint for a yellow-grade component called the medical cabin. The medical cabin was a component that almost every train would have after upgrading. Its existence had elevated the medical standards of tens of thousands of civilizations in this region to a whole new level, and the Scallion civilization had played an indispensable part in that process. Hearing about such cruel experiments and calling it gentle feels a bit forced. Biaozi couldn't help but mutter, "It's relative." Chen Meng leaned on his cane and walked over to a bench by the street. He sat down and continued flipping through the data. After all, the mechanical civilization didn't directly destroy the Scallion civilization back then, but let their civilization continue to exist. In this universe, that can no longer be called gentle. It could even be considered stupid, because leaving a seed behind means they'll eventually come back for revenge. The tablet stored a massive amount of information about civilizations. Aside from having no data on the Kasa civilization, there were quite a few records even on the mechanical civilization. And thanks to this, Chen Meng finally understood why the train system had become the pillar of this universe. It was an inevitable trend. Any civilization had the chance to research and manufacture original train components, and then fully integrate them into their trains. A train was like a smartphone, and each civilization could download different apps from the market, or they could develop new software themselves and integrate it directly. It was a completely open-source platform. Most importantly, trains could absorb the essence of other civilizations. The mechanical civilization couldn't possess the traits of the Scallion civilization because those were civilization-specific traits. Unless they reincarnated, they couldn't directly plunder them. But by researching original train components, they could achieve a roundabout way of plundering. Gradually, when one civilization possessed the traits of countless other civilizations, one could imagine how terrifying its strength would become. And the train was the vessel for all of that, including the cultivation civilization. The so-called cultivation civilization didn't cultivate external power, but themselves. Placed in the universe, it meant elevating their life level, reaching a plane of existence on par with void behemoths. But only people from the cultivation civilization could become cultivators. Beings from other civilizations couldn't. Even if they obtained similar cultivation methods, they couldn't practice them. This was also a type of civilization trait. Therefore, the mechanical civilization captured a large number of cultivators and developed a virtual combat training space. Through map chips and other methods, they enhanced overall physical attributes until they broke a certain limit, upgrading their life level from 0 to 1. In other words, it was gathering the power of countless beings into one body. According to these records, the train system wasn't originally created by the mechanical civilization, but had existed very early on. It was just that the mechanical civilization pushed it to its absolute limits, developing a massive number of original components. Constantly perfecting and improving it, they eventually made it the dominant civilization system in this region. As for regions further away, there was no clear data. Looking at it now, the train truly was the ultimate vessel. Cars or trucks were too small, lacking enough space for facilities and population. Aircraft or spaceships couldn't start from level 0. They were unusable right from the beginning. Only trains could start step by step from the ground, upgrading gradually, installing components as needed, expanding carriages, then targeting a specific component for an upgrade, ultimately creating a train that completely belonged to oneself. Chen Mang sat on the public bench by the street. He kept flipping through information on various civilizations, especially pausing longer on records related to the mechanical civilization. These materials were a mix of truth and falsehoods. They couldn't be considered official history, at most just well-founded unofficial history. But even so, it was enough to piece together a part of the big picture. On the aqua-blue planet's galactic map back then, the west was the territory of the Zerg civilization. The east was the domain of the Casa Civilization Federation, the middle was a buffer zone, and the north was the region of the mechanical civilization. Now, that place was basically completely destroyed. The Great War back then made the space in that region extremely chaotic. Even now, countless traces of attacks remained. Who knew how many light attribute energy beams were still floating in that area, refusing to stop until they hit something? The Casa Civilization Federation controlled a permanent two-way deep wormhole leading straight to those mechanical ruins. Every year, a large number of people flocked there to explore, with a death rate as high as 78%. Out of 10 trains that went in, only about 2 or 3 could make it back alive. Yet that place was always bustling. The reason was simple. As long as you could bring something valuable out of the mechanical ruins, it almost meant changing your life. After all, in terms of origins, the ancestor of the trained civilization system in this region was the mechanical civilization. As long as you were lucky enough to find an original component, and a useful one at that, you would literally strike it rich after one trip. Getting rich overnight was no exaggeration. With resources in hand, the corresponding component blueprints could be copied infinitely. The value was unimaginably high, as long as it wasn't a scallion-type component. After a long while, Chun Meng finally looked up, rubbing his neck that had started to ache. He had once received a blue-grade deep seashell component blueprint, but that was just a minor blueprint, not a true original component. This type of minor blueprint was something the mechanical civilization used to place in shuttle spacecraft. When dropped onto a planet facing an apocalypse, it allowed that planet to grasp multiple corresponding component blueprints. It wasn't the large original type that could be copied infinitely. He had been sitting here reading data for a long time, and his neck was starting to get sore. Looking at the flow of people on the street, even now, he still felt a sense of vagueness. He clearly knew he was standing on the territory of a civilization, but everything felt like he was watching it through a veil. Only when a person stands at a higher vantage point can they see more things. For the past half day, he had almost buried his head in this information, gaining a general understanding of the civilizations around the region. And then he discovered something very interesting. According to records, many powerhouses of the cultivation civilization were extremely arrogant. They believed that true power must belong to oneself and that one shouldn't rely on external forces, otherwise they didn't deserve to be called powerhouses. The mechanical civilization didn't argue with this viewpoint at all. Mine is still mine, everything is mine. They plundered everything, compressed it into components, and mounted it straight onto their trains. External force or personal power, I want it all. hoard it all just to be safe. When it came to cultural inclusivity, the mechanical civilization ranked first. They could accept the traits of all kinds of civilizations. They had no concept of discrimination. In their eyes, everything was good stuff. At first, the cultivation civilization was quite smug, feeling that the other party had acknowledged the greatness of their civilization's traits. But very soon after, they began to regret it, hating the fact that they had hyped up their civilization's traits so loudly in the past. Let's go. Chen Meng lit a cigarette and brought it to his lips. He stretched his limbs a bit and continued walking down the street, looking for a restaurant to see what weird things other civilizations ate. As for whether it would be tasty, he didn't hold much hope. He had already mentally prepared himself to eat some indescribable dishes. For example, raw scallion sashimi. On both sides of the street, high-rise buildings stood close together, looking like office districts. It was unclear what kind of work was being operated inside. In the peace-seeking civilization, most citizens still worked and lived according to a mold. Only a few with good family backgrounds dared to take risks. Exhausting all their assets, even borrowing money, scraping together every penny to build a train capable of space travel, and rushing out to find a future. After all, the speed at which a train earned iron ore was still much faster than a normal job. Look no further than the salary of a convenience store clerk in Sanshui City. It was only about 5,000 units of iron ore a month. He had just seen it on a recruitment flyer in front of a store. And what about him? On mining planet number 1, he had harvested over 10 trillion units of iron ore. And that was only half of what was mined. The rest was still being slowly processed inside the Starfarer. The more he thought about it, the more he felt the Starfarer was like a mechanical dragon, swallowing a mining planet into its belly and slowly digesting it. He just didn't know when he'd be able to swallow another planet like that. He did some quick math. Over 10 trillion iron ore. If based on the salary of a convenience store clerk in Sanshui City, assuming they didn't spend a single dime and save their entire salary, it would only take 25 million years. Didn't sound too bad. Of course, trains earned iron ore fast, but their cash-burning speed was even faster. The cost of upgrading a single component was already beyond what an ordinary person could bear. And that was the best-case scenario. One slight misstep, and it wouldn't just be losing money, but the train being destroyed and the person dying. Risking everything you owned was originally only for those who struck it rich through luck, not the middle class. If the middle class scraped their wealth together, upgrading a few components would drain their funds immediately. But truly wealthy families were different. Almost every family had a train, and their path was laid out before they were even born. Therefore, society here had become extremely harmonious, with almost no sense of anxiety. Chen Meng saw quite a few people with very good complexions, showing absolutely no obvious class conflict. Because true class conflict doesn't lie in being oppressed, but in the people at the bottom seeing a chance to climb up. When someone occasionally climbs up, others want it too, but fail to do so. Expectations and reality clash, and conflict and anxiety are born from that. And the train perfectly solved this problem. The people at the bottom completely lost sight of any chance to climb up. When there wasn't even the slightest possibility, they instead accepted their current lives. From a certain perspective, this really was a way to maintain social stability by stretching the wealth gap to an exaggerated degree. When the gap is so large that it cannot be crossed, conflicts naturally disappear. Very logical and very cold. Right at this moment, a loud bang rang out. The large doors of an office building on the right side of the street were violently pushed open. 2 or 3 burly security guards roughly kicked a young man with messy hair out onto the street. A middle-aged man followed behind, mercilessly spitting on the ground in front of the young man, his eyes full of mockery. He coldly stated that the company only hired him for tax deductions. He bluntly asked if the kid really thought those garbage ideas of his had any value. He called him a piece of trash to his face, laughing at him for thinking he was so smart, daring to compete with him. When he had been eating from this bowl since before the kid was even born. Those weird ideas weren't called innovation, they were called stupidity. Finally, he chased him away, saying the severance pay would be transferred to his account within 15 working days. The young man with the bird's nest hair didn't say a word. He quietly got up from the ground, picked up the scattered document folders one by one, hugged them to his chest, and lowered his head as he squeezed through the crowd, heading toward the other side of the street. In the setting sun, the expression on his face couldn't be seen clearly. Only the rays of sunlight falling on him made him look incredibly desolate. It was clear that no matter the civilization, watching a good show was always an instinct. In just a dozen seconds, a tight circle of people had gathered in front of the company doors. Found it. Lao Zhu handed the tablet to Chen Meng, his voice lowering as he explained. This company is called Sanshui City Feiyang Technology Company. Its main business is researching original components. The peace-seeking civilization's government holds 51% of the shares, making it a semi-official enterprise. The company has been established for 79 years, but to this day, they haven't researched a single original component. The remaining 49% of the shares are held by 7 proxy companies. Behind these 7 companies are multiple layers of other companies, ultimately all tracing back to a Sanshui City archaeological investment company. And the shareholders of this company all share the same surname, Jiang. Additionally, the peace-seeking civilization has a tax incentive policy. Companies that hire civilization-less wanderers receive certain tax subsidies. Researching original components. Chen Meng looked at the information on the screen, his eyes deep in thought. He had always wanted to build his own research team. His advantage was that he could infinitely probe for super effects. This was an absolute advantage that no other civilization possessed. But doing so required too many conditions. From the moment he had this idea until now, he had practically been at a standstill. Follow him. Chen Meng looked up at the young man's figure gradually disappearing at the end of the street, his voice very soft. He was curious about this young man, especially the middle-aged man's words. Weird ideas. He liked weird ideas. In this bustling city, a slum built within the sewer system was hidden underground. This was the most concealed corner of the entire city. Not because it was hard to find, but because no one bothered to pay attention to it. People only looked up at the glamorous facades of the high-rises. No one looked down at the manhole covers beneath their feet. A little girl was sitting by the drainage ditch, scrubbing clothes in a basin with all her might, occasionally looking up at the light shining down from the only nearby entrance. Sunlight in this place had become a luxury. After looking up an unknown number of times, the little girl finally saw a familiar figure. She immediately dropped what she was doing, her face full of joy as she ran over, opening her arms to hug the young man. The little girl looked up at that familiar face, her voice full of excitement, saying he was finally back, asking if he definitely got praised by the boss today. She also showed off that she had found a very nice jacket. She said she'd wash it clean and dry it so he could wear it to work tomorrow and look handsome. Because it was a big company. Then she happily babbled that after today, he'd soon become an official employee, and his dream of sailing the stars wouldn't be far off. The young man silently hugged his sister. After a long time, he let go, looked at the little girl's soap-covered hands, then took the document folders from his chest and casually tossed them into the drainage ditch beside them. His voice carried a sense of collapse, but still tried to stay steady. He said he was unemployed. That company was a scam, only hiring him to work for 3 months to get the tax subsidy. They never seriously listened to his ideas and didn't even care if they could research an original component or not. He worked for 3 months and hadn't even seen a laboratory or a research factory. All they did was sit at desks, making one delusional PPT after another to ask for more funding from the government. They weren't researching blueprints. They were researching PPTs. Finally, he said that on his way back, he saw a convenience store hiring. He had talked to the boss and could start a 7-day trial tomorrow. The little girl, who had just been smiling so brightly, immediately panicked when she saw the disappointment on the young man's face. But before our civilization was destroyed, Dad was the best scientist in the research institute. You inherited all of Dad's legacy. This is also the career you love the most. Working as a convenience store clerk. But very quickly, the little girl clenched her fists, her face turning serious. It's okay. Even if you work as a convenience store clerk, I believe you'll definitely do a great job. In 1 year, I'll be 14. By then, I can go out and make money to support the family too. Yeah. The young man forced a smile, pulling out a small cupcake from behind his back. It's not like there's no good news. The company compensated me with 3 months' salary. I calculated it. If we save a little more, we can rent a small place above ground. Ah, the moment she saw the cake, the little girl's eyes lit up with surprise, but she quickly lowered her voice. Didn't you want to save money to build a train? Don't waste money buying me snacks anymore. Today is your birthday. Did you forget? Oh, is that so? The young man walked over to the drainage ditch, sat on the ground, and looked at the data he had densely written on the wall with chalk. He sat in silence for a very long time, his eyes dazed, before pulling out half a cigarette he had picked up on the street and lighting it. Amidst the swirling smoke, the corner of his mouth curled into a bitter smile. Actually, he absolutely hated his sister. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have had to force a smile and return to this place. He probably would have left this confusing world long ago. Sometimes, attachments are an existence that brings people pain. With attachments, even wanting to die isn't easy. It sounds a bit harsh, but that's life. It's not always logical. Sanshui City was very large, capable of accommodating tourists from countless different civilizations, yet it was also very small. So small that there was no place for the two siblings. Maybe he really was wrong. All his knowledge came from the notebooks his father left behind. Those ideas might truly be impractical. He had never undergone formal education. Perhaps he really was better suited for the job of a convenience store clerk. Thinking like this made living a bit easier to breathe. The half-cigarette quickly burned out. The young man silently fished out the soaking wet clothes in the wash basin, walked toward the wall, and prepared to wipe away all the data on it. From now on, it was better to do basic jobs and keep his feet on the ground. That man wasn't wrong. Right at this moment. Hold on. Don't move. The young man froze, turning his head to look, only to see a man leaning on a cane walking toward him. The clothes on his body clearly showed he wasn't ordinary, and he was followed by several burly men. Obviously, these weren't the kind of people who should appear in a slum. His expression changed slightly. He immediately reached out and pulled his sister behind him to shield her, while simultaneously taking out his employee ID. Gentlemen, I am a scientific researcher for Sanshui City Feiyang Technology Company. This company is backed by shares from the peace-seeking civilization and is strictly protected by the Enforcement Bureau. May I ask what business you have with me? Chen Mang didn't reply. He just walked briskly to the wall, staring intently at every line of text and the dense pile of data. He pulled out a text translation monocle, put it on, and examined it for a long time. Then he tilted his head, looking at the young man beside him with a hint of surprise. Kid, what's your relationship with Uncle Lee? The ideas on this wall were blueprints for various types of components. They even specified the extraction sources, some directly targeting a specific civilization, possessing extremely strong offensive capabilities. There was a lot of technical jargon even he didn't understand, but there was one thing he understood very clearly. Zombie manufacturing cage. This thing couldn't just be a coincidence. You're a captain? The young man, still shielding his sister behind him, asked in a hoarse voice. Yeah, Chun Meng nodded, casually pulling out a mirror to check his face, then stood in place leaning on his cane, looking at him with slight confusion. I don't look that scary, do I? I look pretty amiable. Why are you so scared? Very quickly, following the young man's gaze, he turned to look at the two brothers, Zhang Yi and Zhang Er, standing behind him. The two of them had stone-cold faces, towering over 2 meters tall, each carrying a refrigerator on their shoulders, standing there like monoliths. The sense of threat was stretched to the absolute limit. Looking at them like this, calling them good guys was indeed a bit hard to believe. You two relax a bit, don't scare the kids. Chen Mang sighed, saying something very unconvincing. The young man took a deep breath, looking straight at Chen Mang. You want to recruit me? Chen Mang was a bit surprised, then let out an amused laugh. Who knows? Maybe I'm just passing by for a stroll. Young man, don't think too highly of yourself. Let me guess. Seeing that the man in front of him didn't interrupt, the young man continued, his voice echoing at a steady pace in the cramped space. Captains are all people of status. Normally, they wouldn't come to a filthy place like this. So you must have followed me here, and you also saw me getting kicked out of the company. That proves you need someone to help you research component blueprints. But I have no reputation, I haven't completed my apprenticeship, and I was publicly humiliated and fired by a manager. Speaking up to here, the young man smiled self-deprecatingly. Choosing me, don't you think the risk is a bit high? Yet you still value me. That proves your identity probably isn't orthodox. You could be a smuggler, or maybe a pirate. You can't recruit people through official channels, so civilization-less wanderers like me suit your needs. Researching component blueprints is an extremely resource-consuming project. Not producing a single blueprint in over a decade is very normal. This is the work of an entire civilization, not something an individual should do. The fact that you still have such thoughts proves the strength of your train is definitely not weak. Observing your rosy complexion and vibrant spirit, it's clear you're currently in a period of career success, unbothered by trivial matters. According to the news I know, recently, the largest merchant guild of the peace-seeking civilization was robbed by a pirate group during a trading run. This pirate group ranks 23rd on the Casa Civilization Federation's wanted list and is extremely powerful. They originally didn't belong to this star system, but migrated from another. Their purpose is unknown, but their first shot established their reputation. So, you must be the vice captain of the Philia pirate group. Chen Meng rested his chin on his hand, pondered for a moment, and said, "Why don't I look like the captain? The captain of the pirate group is an earth goblin. Everyone knows this. Is that so?" Chen Meng didn't continue this topic. He just glanced at the data on the wall, his voice slowing down. "What if I don't need you to research new component blueprints for now, but just need you to reverse engineer old ones? For example, a refrigerator. This is a white-grade train component blueprint. I need you to reverse engineer the refrigerator blueprint, and then through multiple probings of the completed blueprint, filter out the best super effect. Can you do it?" "I can, but it will consume a lot of resources and Mufei stones. Every probe is equivalent to a major upgrade. Not counting resources, how long will it take? A few months, but I need a large amount of high-precision experimental equipment. If you don't plan on filing for research subsidies and want to do actual work, I also need all kinds of research chips. And it's best to have an AI assistant with strong enough computing power. Where can high-precision experimental equipment be bought? It doesn't circulate in the market. It can't be bought through official channels. Then unofficial channels? There are many. For example, smuggling or robbing. The Sanshui City Feiyang Technology Company, where I used to work, is expecting an inspection from higher-ups soon. The person in charge urgently purchased a large batch of high-precision experimental equipment through official channels. It's unclear when it will arrive at the peace-seeking planet, but you're definitely better at gathering this kind of information than I am. You mean, we can rob it? If pirates don't rob, are they supposed to buy it? Very good. Chen Meng laughed, looking with interest at the young man standing in the shadows, and pulled a pack of compressed cigarettes from his chest. "You don't mind joining the pirates, do you?" "I mind a little, but I'm afraid it's hard to refuse." "That is indeed the case." He turned and walked out. "Let's go. We'll buy you and your sister some clothes. Xiao AI will definitely like you. Let's go." Lao Zhu, from behind, patted the shoulder of the young man who was still in a daze. "What are you standing there for?" The young man pointed at Zhang Yi and Zhang Er, who were stuffing all the siblings' daily necessities into the refrigerators, his face bewildered. "I thought with your strength, you'd tell me to throw all this stuff away and travel light." "Oh, don't mind those two. They have a bit of a hoarding hobby." "What position does the boss hold in the group?" "Vice captain. I'll introduce you properly later. Let's go first. It stinks so much in here I can barely keep my eyes open." The young man hurriedly nodded, pulling his sister along behind Lao Zhu, looking at the dim light shining down from the manhole cover above. His eyes gradually grew unfocused. His life was just like this. A drowning person wouldn't let go of even a single straw. This group of people was that faint ray of light, pulling him out of the pitch-black sewer. What the future held after joining the pirate group, he didn't know, but he knew he had no right to refuse. He didn't want to die. At least he didn't want his sister to die. That man was clearly the captain of the Philia pirate group. The Earth Goblin thing was probably just a rumor spread to cover their tracks. Then what was their true identity? Recently, the only other powerful pirate group that had emerged was... The next moment, the light ahead suddenly brightened. The manhole cover was completely opened, and Biaozi poked his head down, saying impatiently, "Can you hurry up a bit? Hiding in the back to take a shit?" The young man was startled and hurriedly took large strides to catch up. Coming. Sanshui City, inside a clothing store named Impression City Mall. Chen Meng led Biaozi and the others inside, his eyes scanning the surroundings. The prices weren't cheap at all. A single jacket cost up to 20,000 units of iron ore. To be honest, wearing it wouldn't just warm the body, it would hurt the wallet. You two go pick out a few outfits that fit. Just buy one set, don't buy too many. We have better clothes for you back on the train. Honestly, what kind of garbage clothes are these? They don't even have a spatial pocket. The clothes made on his train all had built-in spatial pockets, and they only cost 1 unit of wood. Even the high-quality ones only cost 500 units of wood. Wasn't that way better than the stuff here? It wasn't that he didn't have money. He just didn't want to spend it on things that were clearly just buying for the sake of it. This was a clothing store on the first floor, obviously belonging to the luxury category. But when Chen Meng saw the slightly anxious look on the young man's face, he still laughed. The simplest way to win over a down-and-out youth was to bring him to a high-end place and slowly crush his old worldview. 20,000 units of iron ore for a jacket. Fine, spending money like this could be considered worth it. At least on a psychological level. Yes, you too. Please come this way. The store clerk enthusiastically led the young man and his sister to the sofa and began introducing the styles. This is this year's latest model. The design is inspired by starfish and battleships. The effect when worn. Right at this moment. A middle-aged man with his arm around a woman walked briskly into the store. Immediately, the eyes of all the remaining clerks lit up like they had seen fresh meat. They swarmed around, not leaving a single gap. Seventh Master, you came here personally today. I was just about to bring all the new arrivals to your residence for you to see. That's right, Seventh Master. You came without any prior notice. We didn't even have time to clear the floor. Then why aren't you clearing it now? You really have no eye for the situation when he's already here. No need. The middle-aged man laughed heartily and waved his hand, glancing at Chen Meng and the others standing to the side, nodding and smiling. It's good to have some fun with the common folks once in a while. Besides, when opening a shop, there's no logic in chasing away customers. They're all customers. Naturally, they should be treated equally. Such bearing, Seventh Master. Truly worthy of the Seventh Master. Chen Meng sighed softly, quietly avoiding the other party's gaze. According to his experience, if he dared to take another look right now, he'd definitely be asked what he was looking at, and having just arrived in Sanshui City, he really didn't want to cause trouble. One look and you could tell the other party was a local noble. It was better to keep a low profile. This scene was secretly observed by the young man standing to the side. Seeing his new boss actively avoiding the Seventh Master's gaze, a hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes, and his initial excitement cooled down quite a bit. Even if he joined a pirate group, he hoped to follow someone strong enough, so he'd have resources for his research. But a pirate who didn't even dare to provoke a local noble was probably just a small-time pirate. Would they really have enough resources for him? Biaozi, standing to the side, looked at the sun logo on the middle-aged man's clothes and was slightly taken aback. Boss Meng, look, doesn't that logo look really familiar? We have it too, remember? The beautiful woman beside the middle-aged man glanced at the clothes of Chen Meng and his group, playing with her nails as she laughed. Do you know what kind of clothes these are? This is the top luxury brand of the mechanical civilization, Blazing Sun. When the mechanical civilization was still thriving, the price of a Blazing Sun outfit was already extremely expensive. Not to mention now that the civilization has been destroyed, every set is out of print. Casually bringing out a single piece is enough to put on an auction block. It's truly a priceless treasure. You say you have them too? Do you think you're worthy? All right. The middle-aged man pretended to put on a stern face and scolded the woman. Watch how you speak. Then he walked over to Chen Meng with an apologetic look, pulling out a business card and handing it over. My subordinate spoke carelessly and startled you all. This is my business card. As compensation, put the 2 outfits you're buying today on my tab. General Manager of Sanshui City Port. Zhu Shun. The business card had no contact information, only a name and a title. Chen Meng looked at the business card in his hand, stayed silent for a moment, and then suddenly laughed. Sometimes, coincidences just happen at the perfect time. Lao Zhu, look up this Zhu Shen for me. Yes. Lao Zhu held the tablet and started searching. The port manager was the person who knew best when the shipment for Sanshui City Feiyang Technology Company would arrive. He needed this batch of high-precision experimental equipment to build his own research team. A research team was what raised the ceiling of power. In the short term, the effects wouldn't be obvious, and it would even drain resources, but in the long run, when all the components on the train were filtered for perfect super effects, the results would be absolutely terrifying. Found it, Lao Zhu said quickly. The official website shows that Zhu Shun will officially take office as the general manager of Sanshui Port in 3 days. Currently, it's the last 3 days of the public notice period. Tonight, he's inviting friends, relatives, and all the merchant guild leaders in the city to his private residence for a promotion banquet. In this position, all the benefits are squeezed from the hands of the merchant guilds. Looks like he's trying to make contact with them beforehand, daring to buy luxury goods during the public notice period, and even bringing his little mistress out shopping. Chen Meng chuckled softly. Seems like he's got some guts. The peace-seeking civilization really is quite lax in managing these things. Very good. Chen Meng turned to look at the young man and his sister standing nearby. Done picking? Done. If you're done, let's go. Saying that, Chen Meng led Lao Zhu and the others straight out of the store. Sir, you haven't paid yet. The store clerk hurriedly chased after them. Didn't you hear him just now? Put it on Zhu Shin's tab. Leaving the mall, Chen Meng looked down and entered the phone number Qiu Yizhao had left into his smartwatch. Very quickly, the call connected. Senior. Qiu Yizhao's voice came through, his attitude respectful. Yeah, tonight, the general manager of Sanshui City Port, Zhu Shun, is hosting a banquet at his private residence. Did he invite you? Qiu Yizhao's voice clearly carried surprise. Senior, your information network is truly sharp. I only just received the invitation not long ago. This guy is newly appointed. Tonight is a Hongmin banquet, clearly meant to show us who's boss and conveniently discuss his cut. I'm still thinking of a way to deal with it. The previous manager only took 2% of the total cargo value. I heard this one is even greedier. If the cut isn't enough, he just has to conveniently slip some contraband in during the cargo inspection. Usually, they won't swallow the goods entirely. That's too obvious. But just holding the goods at the port for a year or so is enough to basically collapse a merchant guild. What gift are you planning to bring? I haven't thought of one yet. Tonight before you go to the banquet, come find me. I'll go with you. This. Qiu Yizhao's voice hesitated, carrying a hint of unease. Senior, the peace-seeking civilization's firepower isn't weak. If an incident occurs and leads to a planetary lockdown, it could easily turn into a huge mess. Yeah, I know. Hanging up the call, Chen Meng let out a breath, stretched lazily, and looked up at the darkening sky. His luck had always been pretty good. Just as he was feeling sleepy, someone brought him a pillow. Right at this moment, Lao Zhu stepped forward and reported in a low voice. President AI has finished investigating all the firepower information of the peace-seeking civilization from recent years. First is the Enforcement Bureau of each city. Normally, a city's General Enforcement Bureau is equipped with a level 10 train. The primary attack method is a level 10 Doomsday Mechanical Cannon. Level 10 armor. Enforcement officers use standard weapons, with basic attack intensity, all at level 1. One tier higher are the city's base weapons. For example, the anti-air cannons around Sanshui City and the port's anti-air cannons. Their basic levels are all at level 30. Higher still are the planetary defense main cannons and the military trains. The planetary defense main cannons are used to protect the planet. The peace-seeking civilization currently has 3 of them, all with an attack intensity of level 50, used to deal with alien civilization invasions and high-speed meteorites piercing the defense network. Additionally, there are a large number of robot legions, a small fraction of armored ground troops, and the main military trains. The total number of military trains in service is 1,600, with the highest level being level 30. The strongest weapon equipped is a level 99 A-cannon main energy cannon. The primary weapon is a pink-grade component, the sonic wave mechanical cannon, which is a secondary cannon, with attack intensity generally at level 50. But Lao Zhu paused for a moment before continuing. Out of these 1,600 trains, 1,086 belong to the private forces of the peace-seeking civilization's noble families. Their policy is that for any family that integrates their train into the military, the government will cover half of the upgrade costs. On normal days, the families still use their trains themselves. They are only requisitioned during wartime, and the peace-seeking civilization hasn't had a war in many years. Chen Meng nodded, taking the tablet from Lao Zhu and constantly scrolling through it. Upgrading a 7-color component to level 100 consumes resources, but for a civilization, it's still bearable. But after level 100, the resource consumption becomes an astronomical figure. The strongest weapon of the peace-seeking civilization is only a level 99 cannon. In other words, even if they threw everything they had at us, they couldn't break my train's defenses. To put it bluntly, they're still too green. Lao Zhu only reported the attack intensity, not the defense, because there was truly no need. Their strongest train only had a maximum defense of around level 47. Compared to the Starfarer, the gap wasn't just a little bit. Lao Zhu continued. President AI also provided a war record. A civilization once used a level 1A cannon main energy cannon to hit a level 2 zombie. It couldn't break the defense, and the zombie didn't die. But when they used a level 101A cannon to shoot a level 102 zombie, the zombie died. Conclusion. Level 100 is a threshold in the universe. After crossing this level, the strict protection mechanism of core energy disappears, and everything is calculated by pure attack intensity. For example, a level 101A cannon can deal damage to level 110 armor, although the damage isn't high due to the strong defense. If it attacks enough times, it can still slowly grind it to death, rather than being absolutely unbreakable. And the Casa civilization stipulates that all level 1 civilizations are not allowed to possess weapons with an attack intensity exceeding level 99. Once it exceeds this range, if discovered, they will directly face the Casa civilization's grand army at their borders. On the surface, the peace-seeking civilization doesn't have any, but whether they do behind the scenes, I can't say for sure. Chen Meng narrowed his eyes slightly. This information was very important. In other words, after crossing the level 100 threshold, mass-producing troops would become extremely crucial. As long as the numbers were sufficient, ants could bite an elephant to death. But the problem was, this kind of mass troop production at this range was at least the battlefield of level 3 or level 4 civilizations. Even when the mechanical civilization was at its peak, like the sun at high noon, mass-producing existences with level 100 attack intensity was very difficult to achieve. This was probably also why the mechanical civilization constantly filtered the super effect of the Robot Research Center to total consumption halved. Every attack at this intensity required consuming a massive amount of resources. His level 50A cannon main energy cannon consumed 5 billion units of iron ore with every shot. Working backward, a level 100A cannon would consume at least 20 billion units of iron ore per shot. Civilization wars at this level, to put it bluntly, were just a battle of attrition based on internal foundations. Once resources were depleted, the only path left was waiting for death. The highest level train of the peace-seeking civilization currently was only level 30. The mechanical civilization back in the day only had trains slightly over level 100. It seemed that the train's level wasn't a mandatory factor. At least in most cases, its priority was still lower than the component levels. Prepare to head back. Chen Meng handed the tablet back to Lao Zhu, his voice calm. Go back and prepare a bit. We're attending a banquet tonight. The battlefield scenarios past level 100 were something he didn't need to worry about for now. The most urgent matter at hand was to handle tonight's banquet first. He led the group into a roadside hotel, rented a double room, and then waved his hand, signaling Biaozi and the others to cover the young man's eyes. When the young man opened his eyes again, he had already appeared inside the cabin of the Starfarer. The young man looked at the scene before him, dumbfounded, not yet recovering his senses. Chen Meng had already sat down in a chair, waving his hand and saying straightforwardly, "Take him down below. Have Xiao AI implant a resident chip, and let him have a chat with Xiao AI while you're at it." Lao Zhu nodded respectfully, looking at the young man and the little girl hiding behind her brother, nervously clutching the corner of his shirt, and smiled. "Welcome to the Starfarer. Follow me." After they left, Chun Mang casually grabbed Xiao Lu, who was sleeping like a dead pig on the chair, and pulled it into his arms, rubbing it. Xiao Lu groggily opened its eyes. Seeing Chun Mang, it affectionately rubbed its head against his palm, its whole body fluffing up, incredibly adorable. "Xiao Lu, oh Xiao Lu, you've eaten so much of my resources. Tonight it's your turn to take the field. Hear that?" Chun Mang looked down at it, poking its pink little mouth as he laughed. "You really are the void behemoth with the fastest growth rate in the entire universe." Void behemoths were legendary pets of the universe. Once mature, they possessed unfathomable, godlike power, known as the children of the universe. This was an ability that beings from other civilizations didn't have, because void behemoths didn't belong to any civilization. The behemoth cabin, a great invention of the mechanical civilization, was used precisely to significantly shorten the larval stage of a void behemoth, allowing it to quickly enter the growth stage where it possessed combat power. When fully mature, its level could reach 180, possessing both extreme offense and defense. And right now, Xiao Lu had already reached level 100. Its larval stage was more than halfway over. Of course, because of this, it had also consumed a significant amount of his resources. Every time the train cabin upgraded, a portion of the resources was burned on Xiao Lu. Going to a banquet, he had to prepare a big enough killing weapon to completely control the situation. The commotion of using the train was too big, and he didn't plan on doing that. This time, he wanted to handle it cleanly and efficiently, trying not to alarm anyone, just privately interrogating Zhu Shun. Xiao Lu was the most suitable choice. Even though it was currently just a level 100 larva, its attack and defense intensity had already reached level 100. His level 50 A-cannon main energy cannon hadn't been upgraded further for now, but every time the main cannon fired, it consumed a massive amount of resources. Meanwhile, a single charge from Xiao Lu only consumed resources equivalent to one meal. Delicious and nutritious. He had tested it. In its larval stage, Xiao Lu didn't have many attack methods. Its only method was a savage, straightforward charge. It sounds simple, but this was the charge of a level 100 void behemoth. If all 9,398 level 1 civilizations in the Casa Civilization Federation obeyed the rules, then as long as Xiao Lu was given enough time, it alone could defeat all those civilizations, using the power of a single beast to slaughter nearly 10,000 civilizations. To be more precise, the Casa Civilization Federation's rule was that the maximum attack intensity of a level 1 civilization could not exceed 9,900. This range was exactly the maximum power a level 99 7-color component could produce. As for a level 200 or 400 repeating crossbow, it didn't matter, because no matter how high it was upgraded, its power still wouldn't reach this threshold. Below level 100, due to the core energy's protection mechanism, as long as there was a crushing level difference, no matter how high the attack intensity was, it couldn't break the defense. But after passing the protection period, everything was calculated by the energy range. As long as the energy range was high enough, even a repeating crossbow could kill a god. It was just that, normally speaking, the attack intensity of a repeating crossbow was very hard to reach that level. After that, Chun Mang prepared some more train blade fragments, storing them directly in the refrigerator next to him. A strong magnetic machine could help him execute a move like 10,000 swords firing at once within the enemy radar's range. Just thinking about that scene was satisfying enough. Whether he actually used it or not, he'd just keep it ready for now. Next, his gaze shifted to the Robot Research Center and the armed hacker robot production line on the train screen. Manufacturing a standard level 10 robot, unarmored, only required 70,000 units of copper ore. This robot possessed level 0 armor and level 10 attack intensity. Of course, that was the old price. Back then, under the condition of having 2 total consumption halved effects, the Robot Research Center had been upgraded by him to level 200. The cost to manufacture a level 10 armed robot was now only 4,375 units of copper ore. Extremely cheap. By consuming just 43,750,000 units of copper ore, he could manufacture 10,000 level 10 armed hacker robots. At the same time, he stuffed 100,000 units of copper ore into each robot's head, ensuring they had enough ammunition. With such low attack intensity, the ammunition consumption could almost be ignored. Level 10 armed robots thrown onto a massive battlefield wouldn't even count as cannon fodder. But using them to deal with a minor official of the peace-seeking civilization was so overkill that it was a bit of a waste. Although Xiao Lu was very strong, that strength wasn't intuitive enough. Compared to 10,000 armed robots holding Gatling guns lined up neatly, the latter scene clearly had more deterrent power and made it easier for people to understand the situation quickly. Under normal circumstances, he definitely wouldn't need to use 10,000 of them. But it was better to have them ready. Just in case, all he had to do was open the refrigerator and they could step right out. Dusk passed, and stars covered the night sky. Sanshui City. Shen Mang and his group successfully met up with Qiu Yizhao outside a manor. The manor ahead was Zhu Shun's private residence. Qiu Yizhao stood to the side and explained. In previous years, the ownership of this manor was still under dispute. Later, it became an unspoken rule that every general manager of Sanshui City Port could live here after taking office. Zhu Shen's promotion banquet tonight is being held here. Shen Mang stood in the shadows, leaning on his cane, standing still for a moment before speaking slowly. Qiu Yizhao, I've noticed that the internal corruption of your peace-seeking civilization seems a bit excessive. Companies openly use fake documents to scam research funds. Those corrupt officials openly embezzle money. It seems like no one has ever truly cared about the future of the civilization. Qiu Yizhao stayed silent for a long time, his expression complex, before finally speaking up. I've made a fool of myself in front of you, senior. Actually, there's really no other way. The limits of the civilization have already been set. The Casa Civilization Federation doesn't allow level 1 civilizations to become too strong. Unable to continue developing, we can only rot from the inside. The peace-seeking civilization has appeared peaceful for many years, but in reality, we've always lived in a high-pressure environment. Senior, you might not know. Recently, a Philia pirate group appeared in the star system, continuously plundering the merchant guilds of various civilizations. Their strongest weapon is a level 100 A-cannon main energy cannon. Everyone understands. The main source of profit for pirates isn't plundering, but using plundering to show off their strength, and then collecting protection fees from merchant guilds and smugglers. If it weren't for the Casa Civilization's rules, how could the merchant guilds of so many civilizations let a bunch of pirates bully them like this? Civilizations are bound by rules. Pirates, on the other hand, no one controls them. As a result, the pirates are getting stronger and stronger, even manufacturing firepower components stronger than the best trains of many civilizations. They upgraded the A-cannon to level 100, but they've never actually fired it. Because no train has defenses reaching level 100. Level 50 is enough of a threat. They purely built it to show off. The entire Civilization Federation is in a state of extreme suppression. Sooner or later, something is going to happen. Under these circumstances, people can only live day by day. Just living well in the present is enough. Shen Mang nodded slightly. Actually, there is a way. A civilization could completely create its own pirates, cut ties with them, and not have to take responsibility. Exactly, Qiu Yizhao's voice deepened. Otherwise, where did this suddenly appearing powerful pirate group come from? No civilization is willing to accept being restricted forever. Even if the Casa civilization tries to suppress it, the desire to seek the Tao cannot be extinguished. Because of this, there are more and more pirates in the Federation. I'm just worried that the Casa civilization will sooner or later carry out a massive purge. When that time comes, who knows how many billions of lives will die unjustly. Moreover, the resources of the peace-seeking civilization are mostly in the hands of the noble families. It's very difficult for the leaders to create any real constraints. If it weren't for the Casa civilization's restrictions, the leaders could completely build a strong enough train, centralize resources, and maintain absolute power. But in the current situation, strength and resources are scattered to the point of chaos. Shen Mang didn't say anything more. He just patted Qiu Yizhao lightly on the shoulder, signaling that he could go inside. In the suburbs of Sanshui City, a manor was situated here. People entered the manor one after another. Chen Meng led Lao Zhu and the others, following behind Qiu Yizhao as they walked inside. Along the way, it was brightly lit, decorated with lanterns and flowers. There was even someone taking names at the gate. The atmosphere was extremely lively. The interesting thing was, taking names here wasn't for registration. At the gate, someone held a small notebook containing the names of all the merchant guilds in Sanshui City. Whenever a merchant guild leader arrived, they would cross out that guild's name in the notebook. In the end, only a group of those who hadn't arrived would be left. This method made it hard to tally who had come, but with just a glance, you'd know exactly who hadn't. Following the small path in the manor to the end, a luxurious villa appeared. In front of the gate, a middle-aged man with a face full of smiles was standing there welcoming guests. This person was exactly the general manager of Sanshui City, port they had met in the mall during the day. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man noticed them. He immediately left the guest he was chatting with, took large strides over, sized Chen Meng up and down, and laughed. "We met today. I didn't expect you to be in the merchant guild business too. Looks like we'll be dealing with each other a lot in the future. Come, please come inside." "Very good." Chen Meng also smiled in return. But right as his words fell, Zhang Yi beside him strode forward carrying the refrigerator, opened the door, and slammed it straight down over the middle-aged man's head. When the refrigerator slammed heavily onto the ground, the middle-aged man had vanished from the spot. Qiu Yizhao stared blankly at the scene before him. Before coming, he knew the senior would definitely cause trouble tonight, and he was mentally prepared for it. It was just, he didn't expect the senior to cause trouble in this manner. It was so extreme, he couldn't even react in time. You should at least pick a secluded spot, right? With people all around, how could no one notice? He quickly looked around. Sure enough, no one had noticed. Looking closer, there were no cameras. No one installed cameras in this manner, because doing so would be no different from keeping evidence of their own crimes. Even though the peace-seeking civilization's management was quite lax, if it was brought before the public eye, they couldn't just ignore it. The young man following behind Chen Meng was equally dumbfounded at this moment. During the day, he still thought his new boss wasn't strong enough and didn't dare offend local nobles. The result? Tonight, the moment they arrived at the guy's house, they directly kidnapped the host, and in plain sight. Was it really this wild? Are pirates this gutsy nowadays? Kidnapping the port manager is a major crime. Aside from a few extremely powerful pirate groups, how could ordinary pirates withstand the wrath of the peace-seeking civilization? Even the Philia pirate group wouldn't dare provoke the peace-seeking civilization. Chen Meng stood in place leaning on his cane, his right hand still extended preparing for a handshake. Looking at the scene before him, the smile gradually stiffened on his face. He looked around, confirmed no one was paying attention, then turned to look at Zhang Yi and Zhang Er, asking hoarsely, word by word, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Probably realizing he had gone a bit overboard, Zhang Yi panicked and lowered his head. "Boss Mang, didn't you say that when we saw Zhu Shan, as soon as you said the words 'very good', I should use the refrigerator to catch him? Did I say that just now?" "You did." Chen Meng tilted his head to look at Lao Zhu. A questioning look flashed in his eyes. Lao Zhu looked a bit embarrassed and replied softly, "Boss Mang, you really did say that." Chen Meng stayed silent for a moment, then sighed softly. "Next time we make a plan, you guys remind me a bit. Don't use my catchphrases as secret codes. Seriously." Since it's already started like this, the plan continues. Let's find a place to hide first, and ask Zhu Shan a few questions. Inside the Starfarer, Zhu Shan stood on the wasteland with a face full of bewilderment, looking up at the orange-red sun hanging overhead, then looking around at the empty wasteland and the solitary refrigerator sitting beside him. After a very long time, he finally couldn't help but roar. "What the hell is this? Where did you guys take me? Is this even the peace-seeking planet anymore? Is anyone there?" The sun of the peace-seeking planet was a beautiful pink, but the sun here was an obnoxious orange-red. Even though he didn't know where this was, he could say with absolute certainty that this was not the peace-seeking planet. More importantly, it was currently nighttime on the peace-seeking planet. The sun had just set, and it wasn't morning yet. He only remembered meeting the man from the mall during the day. Just as he stepped forward to greet him, A burly man carrying a refrigerator rushed over. The next moment, he appeared here. Zhu Shun, feeling a bit in disbelief, opened the refrigerator beside him. It was just a very normal refrigerator, completely empty inside, with nothing at all. He had clearly been stuffed into this fridge, but when he opened the door again, he had arrived in this godforsaken place. Could it be? This was a kidnapping by the Casa civilization? Zhou Shin sat slumped on the ground in despair. The ability to instantly teleport to such an unfamiliar planet. It seemed only the Casa civilization could pull off something like this. Was the Casa civilization preparing to make a move on the Chua civilization? And was he chosen to be their mole? Just as Zhou Shun was sitting on the floor, looking around in a daze and at a total loss for what to do, the refrigerator door next to him was pushed open. Chen Meng, leaning on a cane, slowly stepped out of the fridge. Behind him was Biaozi, carrying a chair. Zhou Shun watched. Chen Meng sat down on the chair, sizing up the incredibly ordinary-looking middle-aged man in front of him. After a brief pause, he asked softly, "Do you know why you're here?" Seeing Chen Meng, Zhou Shun breathed a sigh of relief. Now that he was certain this was a kidnapping, everything else would be much easier to handle. At worst, it was just a matter of negotiation. He was only afraid of being killed over a personal grudge. As long as it wasn't a life-or-death vendetta, anything could be negotiated. Thinking of this, he snapped back to reality. His mind raced as he carefully opened his mouth. In my entire life, I have never made any enemies or held any grudges. You have an extraordinary aura. You're definitely not a mere lackey, but the one in charge. And yet, I've never met you before. If you came looking for me specifically because of that little conflict earlier today, it just doesn't make sense. In the merchant circles of Sanshui City, I've never heard of a figure like you. He paused for a moment, his gaze gradually sharpening. Eliminating the possibilities one by one leaves only one answer. You need my position as the head of the Sanshui City port to facilitate something. Let me guess. The most valuable shipment arriving at the port recently is the batch of high-end equipment for the Feiyang Technology Company of Sanshui City. You're targeting that shipment, aren't you? Chen Meng sat in his chair, his expression unchanging, but a flash of surprise crossed his mind. Was his plan really that obvious? The guy guessed it right after just a few words. It felt like playing werewolf and blindly pointing out 3 wolves with his eyes closed. Never made any enemies or held any grudges. Biaozi, standing behind Chen Meng, narrowed his eyes at Zhou Shun. He gave a fake smile, his voice dripping with cold sarcasm. Spending 3 days in a luxury store. You don't look like someone who keeps a low profile at all. That couldn't be helped. Zhou Shun revealed a look of bitter helplessness. I was transferred here from another city. Although it's an official promotion, all my connections are back in my old city. To put it bluntly, it's a promotion on the surface, but a demotion in reality. And the environment in Sanshui City isn't exactly friendly. If I act too upright, I could easily be wiped out. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Truth be told, I don't actually care for luxury goods. Oh really? Biaozi sneered. Then what about that beautiful but brainless woman next to you? A smart man wouldn't keep someone like her around. I was forced to bring such a stupid woman along. Zhou Shin said, cracking his knuckles, his voice flat. I don't have any network in this city, yet I hold an extremely crucial position. The major interest groups will definitely try to rope me in. If I take a side, it means war begins. My plan was to play dumb, act a little ignorant, and try not to take any sides. Once my superiors finish their business, I'll be transferred elsewhere. But I can't just refuse them outright. Doing so would only anger them. I can let that woman say stupid things, just enough to serve as a rejection. He paused, his voice remaining chillingly calm. Then, I just need to kill her right in front of them. It shows my sincerity in apologizing while also buying me time. After all, if I'm willing to kill my own woman to show sincerity, who would dare say anything else? Secondly, I just need to put on enough of a show. All right, that's enough. Chen Meng raised a hand to cut him off. Looking at the middle-aged man, he said calmly, You guessed right. My target this time is indeed that shipment. When does it arrive at the port? High-ranking officials in the system really weren't fools. It was just that these power plays and schemes were too convoluted. He really had no interest in hearing the rest. Zhou Shen fell silent for a long time before speaking in a hoarse voice. It's scheduled to arrive at the port in 3 days. But the Feiyang Technology Company of Sanshui City belongs to the Jiang family. This shipment is extremely important to them. The Jiang family is the largest interest group in Sanshui City, tying together the interests of many people. Their influence isn't just limited to Sanshui City. It spreads across dozens of cities. If this shipment disappears, something very serious will happen. A lot of people will die, including me. You won't die. Shen Meng looked straight at Zhou Shen, his voice light but firm. Just stay right here. No one will find you. This place is absolutely safe. As long as you don't try any cheap tricks. I guarantee you'll live a good, long life. You just need to tell me the exact whereabouts of the shipment. At what stage should we make our move to secure the goods with the least amount of noise? Zhou Shen looked around, then tilted his head up to look at the sun overhead. A bitter smile crept onto his lips. It's over. Not that he was finished, but Sanshui City was finished. The power structure of the Chioha civilization was centered around the government and the major families. In recent years, these families had used every trick in the book to pocket public resources, with the Jiang family of Sanshui City being the most blatant. The newly appointed leader of the civilization was planning to purge these parasites, and their first target was the Jiang family. Specifically, they were investigating whether the family was actually researching component blueprints or just using a few PowerPoint slides to scam research funds. This was exactly why the Jiang family was rushing to purchase high-end equipment. At least on the surface, they had no intention of tearing up their relationship with the leader. Once this matter was brought to light, many people would have to die. From those who covered up the information, to those who knowingly approved the funds, to those who knew the truth but didn't report it. The whole lot of them. But these people certainly wouldn't just sit around waiting to die. Moreover, they weren't unarmed civilians. Each of them had their own armed forces backing them. It was entirely predictable. Once the truth was exposed, and there was no turning back, a slew of top-tier families, centered around the Jiang family, would definitely clash directly with the government and start a war. A massive war was inevitable, and the fuse for all of this was right here. If he could just grit his teeth today and refuse to leak any information, none of this would happen. Everyone could live in peace. But I'll talk, Zhou Shen sighed, his voice carrying a hint of relief but also full of helplessness. I'm not sure where the Jiang family bought this shipment from. But today, I received an entry notice from the merchant guild affiliated with the Jiang family. The shipment will exit from wormhole number 28 and is expected to arrive at Chioha planet in 3 days. He paused for a moment before continuing, his tone growing more serious. If you want to hijack the goods, there are 3 locations to choose from. The first location is the midpoint between wormhole number 28 and Chioha planet. The advantage is that this stretch is practically an unmanaged zone. The planetary defense grid of Chioha planet can't cover that far, and outsiders won't have a clue what happened. As long as you're fast enough and don't leak any information, they won't be able to send an effective distress signal back to the Jiang family. You could say it'd be done without anyone being the wiser. The downside is, if you mishandle it even slightly, they might choose a murder-suicide approach and self-destruct the train. And the strength of the Jiang family's merchant train is nothing to scoff at. It's considered top tier among the merchant guilds in Sanshui City. The second location is the Sanshui City port, during the unloading phase. The advantage is that if successful, you can ensure the goods remain as intact as possible. But the disadvantage is also very clear. You'll face a double assault from the Sanshui City Law Enforcement Bureau and the Jiang family's defense squad. If you make too much noise, it might even draw the attention of the Chioha civilization's planetary reserve army, or even the Kasa civilization's garrison stationed on Chioha planet. The risk is extremely high. The third location is the temporary research facility rented by the Jiang family. This shipment is mainly being used by the Jiang family to deal with the inspection. We can totally wait for them to finish their business before raiding the research base. That way, even if the Jiang family is furious, their anger won't be too extreme. It minimizes the offense cost. Furthermore, their guard won't be as high as it is now. the success rate will increase significantly. It'll be a walk in the park, with almost zero chance of failure. As for the downside, Zhou Shun continued slowly. The Jiang family will definitely report the incident and apply for another batch of funding. Meanwhile, you'll face a full-scale manhunt from the Chioha civilization's government. Instead of just offending the Jiang family, you'll be offending the entire Chioha civilization. Chen Meng looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with a rather strange expression. He had only intended to ask for some intel, but who would have thought the guy would casually lay out 3 action plans, complete with a clear analysis of the pros and cons for each? No matter how he looked at it, this guy reeked of a third-rate tactician. Old Zhou. Chen Meng tilted his head and looked over. You're both guys from the system. How come you aren't this full of schemes? Look at him, talking so smoothly. Old Zhou respectfully lowered his voice. Boss Meng, I used to work internally within the system. I haven't experienced much power struggle. Besides, he's much more familiar with the situation in the Casa Civilization Federation than I am. He sure is lively. He starts his sentences with we and ends them with we. Anyone who didn't know better would think he's the tactician of this gang, not the guy who just got kidnapped. Zhou Shen tactfully lowered his head, but his eyes darted around rapidly. Boss Meng, surname Meng? And he's not too familiar with the situation in the Casa Civilization Federation? Could it be an uninvited guest from afar? Moreover, his attitude when speaking of the Casa Civilization lacked any reverence. It was highly likely that the civilization backing this man was not weak at all. Good heavens, he had really run into a mighty dragon crossing the river today. So tell me. Chen Meng smiled faintly at Zhou Shan, his eyes waiting for an answer. Out of these 3 plans, which one is the best? I'm not sure, Zhou Shan hesitated. How strong is our train? Exactly. Very strong. How strong, specifically? Wiping out the Chioha civilization? A piece of cake. Zhou Shan froze, a flash of terror in his eyes. Using a single train to face a level 1 civilization head-on. This was something not even the top pirate syndicates would dare to do. Pirates might have heavy firepower, but their defenses were lacking. They could act arrogant, sure, but if they truly angered the Chioha civilization, they'd be annihilated in the blink of an eye. Yet the man in front of him had just casually spoken of wiping out the Chioha civilization with a terrifyingly calm tone. He searched the other man's eyes for any sign of a joke, but found only absolute confidence. He wasn't bluffing at all. The young man standing behind him also froze in place, his mouth slowly falling open in shock. If that's the case. Zhou Shen swallowed hard, his throat dry. Then the first plan is the best. Crush them directly with overwhelming force. It's just that, to prevent them from going down fighting, it's best if we capture a few high-ranking executives from the Feiyang Technology Company of Sanshui City. To put it bluntly, grab a few hostages just to be safe. Otherwise, if they go crazy, it'll be a real hassle. We must do our best to control the train from the inside so it can't self-destruct. This requires coordination between the individual combat team and the train itself. But that stretch of space is too vast, and we don't know their exact route. If they don't follow the standard space lanes, we might not even run into them. We'll run into them. Chen Meng chuckled. He stood up and patted Zhou Shun on the shoulder, his tone so calm it was almost unsettling. Then we'll go with your first plan. Do you have anything else to add? Yes. Zhou Shun took a deep breath and spoke quickly. I've been missing for too long. Someone has likely noticed by now. I need to get back as soon as possible. If someone calls the cops, our plan could easily be exposed. I need to go back and take charge of the situation. He paused, lowering his voice. But I hope you can take me with you when you make your move. If I stay here, once the incident happens, I'm a dead man. Of course, Chen Meng replied simply. The conversation went incredibly smoothly. However, he didn't let Zhou Shun leave right away. Instead, he brought him straight to the control room of the planetary train. On the massive screen, every living being within a 0.15 light-year radius was clearly displayed on the map. Chen Meng continuously zoomed in on the screen until Chioha Planet appeared as a single, isolated planet. He then pointed at the screen, turning to look at Zhou Shun. Show me. Which one is the Jiang family's merchant train? Zhou Shun stared at the scene before him, his legs trembling uncontrollably, his eyes filled with despair. Although he wasn't a captain, he had dealt with quite a few trains. He could tell this was the display screen for an enemy-searching radar component. But the problem was, how could a normal radar have such an absurdly massive scanning range? Even many of the Choha civilization's top-secret hidden trains and strategic facilities were clearly displayed. In front of this train, it seemed the entire Choha civilization had no secrets left. Now he believed what Chen Mang had said earlier was true. Absolute crushing dominance. The Choha civilization was being seen right through to its core, while they remained completely oblivious that such a terrifying train had appeared on their planet. That's right, this was Choha planet. He wasn't sure what planet he had been on before, but after entering the control room, the view outside the window was clearly a warehouse on Choha planet. The slogans hanging in the warehouse bore the distinct style of this place. In the quiet control room, only the sound of Zhou Shun's dry swallowing could be heard. Trembling, he raised his hand, looking at the dense cluster of red dots on the screen before stepping forward to tap it lightly. Wormhole number 28 is roughly in this direction. Choha planet is here. Aside from the area in between, the other regions can be temporarily hidden. Xiao AI. Understood. Xiao AI's crisp voice rang out in the control room, and the red dots on the screen instantly decreased significantly. Only keep the trains heading toward Choha planet. Hide the ones heading toward the wormhole. The number of red dots dropped sharply again. Hide any trains below level 25 as well. Filter out the ones that are close by or have already completed half their journey. After a round of filtering, only a single level 27 mechanical train remained on the screen. This one. Zhou Shin stood before the screen, pointing at the lone remaining red dot. He turned to look at Chen Mang, his voice trembling. That should be the Jiang family's merchant train. This was too absurd. That train had absolutely no idea what was going on, yet all its intel had been completely exposed. Zhou Shin even saw the levels of all the enemy's components displayed in the upper corner of the screen. There were no secrets left. To put it bluntly, even their underwear had been seen through. How could they possibly lose this battle? Even if Chun Mang's train was weaker than the enemy's, the chances of winning were still incredibly high, let alone the fact that his strength was already overwhelmingly superior. Zhou Shin suddenly realized that the schemes and power struggles he had always prided himself on were nothing more than child's play in the face of an absolute gap in strength. Thinking back on it, it was almost laughable. Very good. Chen Mang smiled faintly. Xiao AI, mark this train. Then he turned his head. Biaozi, take Zhou Shin back to the manor. Don't keep his guests waiting too long. I hope we have a pleasant cooperation. This way. Biaozi, standing by the cold storage door, said in a deep voice. Zhou Shin looked around with mixed feelings. This man had no reservations at all, letting him see everything. But the more he knew, the more terrified he felt. Just then, Chen Mang suddenly stopped, his gaze falling on the sun-shaped logo on Zhou Shin's clothes. He asked thoughtfully, "How much are the clothes you're wearing worth?" Zhou Shin froze. Though he didn't understand the intention, he still explained, "What I'm wearing is a knockoff. The real ones are very expensive. I can't afford them. For the authentic ones, just a short-sleeved shirt is around 150 million units of iron ore. If it's a jacket, pants, or a dress shirt, it's even more expensive. And it also depends on the condition. Since they're so old and storage conditions are often poor, the condition usually isn't great. If it's well-preserved, the price goes even higher. This is Liang, the top luxury brand of the mechanical civilization. Because even though the Kasa civilization doesn't want to admit it, their people internally worship the mechanical civilization. They consider wearing Liang clothing a badge of honor. That's why the prices have been driven up so high. Can it be counterfeited? Chen Mang asked further. Impossible. Zhou Shin shook his head. The anti-counterfeit design on the Liang logo is still incredibly difficult to replicate to this day. Plus, there's a complete authentication process. Before they're put up for auction, they have to go through strict inspections. In short, even if you wanted to fake it, you couldn't. I see. Chen Mang nodded, his voice calm. I'll give you a batch, and you help me sell them. No problem, right? Hey, a batch. Zhou Shin stood rooted to the spot, unable to process it for a long time before finally muttering. These are top-tier luxury goods. There are plenty of people who want to buy them, but not many who can afford to spend such a massive sum. If the quantity exceeds 20 sets, it'll be very difficult for Choha Planet to digest them all in a short amount of time. We'd have to go to Furong Planet. Zhou Shin quickly adjusted his thoughts and continued. Furong Planet and Choha Planet both belong to star system number 27. They're both in this sector. That planet frequently sees a lot of trains coming to explore the ruins of the mechanical civilization. Quite a few people have struck it rich that way, and seeing that, others from around the area flock there too. That industry is also the biggest source of Liang clothing. Many people looking to buy Liang go to Furong Planet. There are tons of stalls there, and they could easily absorb a whole batch like that in a short time. Zhou Shin went on. Furthermore, the extremely famous tourist mecca within the Kasa Civilization Federation, along with the planet of that cultivation civilization, are also located in this star system. A lot of people finish their tours, stop by Choha Planet for some fun, and then conveniently head over to Furong Planet to shop. Got it. Chen Meng waved his hand. You can go now. Watching Zhou Shun's retreating back, he silently calculated in his head. It seemed he had really stumbled upon a massive windfall. Back in Neon City, at the luxury stores on the upper levels of Sun City, he had casually swept up quite a few pieces of Liang brand clothing. They were still piled up in his train. He never expected they would one day become something of such terrifying value. A single short-sleeved shirt was worth 150 million, and back then, he had practically cleaned out an entire store. As for the other two entertainment cities, he hadn't even visited the luxury stores there yet. Thinking of this, he decided that after finishing this job, he would take a trip to Furong Planet and sell off that pile of clothes while he was at it. He still didn't know exactly where Neon City was located. Every time, he entered using an admission ticket, which always left him feeling like he wasn't in control. If he could pinpoint the exact location of that isolated city and just stuff it directly into his planetary train, that would be much more comfortable. Just this batch of clothes alone could sell for at least several 100 billion units of iron ore. It wouldn't crash the market price, would it? Well, even if it did, he wouldn't be taking a loss anyway. Not long after, Xiao AI walked in, holding a denim jacket in her hands. The condition of mine is definitely the best. It hasn't even been touched by the wind or the harsh sun. A short-sleeved shirt sells for 150 million. So selling this jacket of mine for 500 million isn't asking too much, right? Chen Meng looked at the jacket in his hands and muttered to himself. This wealth gap was truly absurd. Down there, some people worked their fingers to the bone for a whole month just to earn a few thousand units of iron ore. Some even lived in the sewers. And yet, up here, a single jacket was worth hundreds of millions. The world really was unfair, but he quite liked this kind of unfairness. Xiao AI, go check how hard it is to counterfeit this logo. See if you can crack it. Chen Meng added, though he didn't hold much hope himself. If even the Kasa civilization was helpless against it, he certainly wasn't expecting a miracle. But if it really could be counterfeited, then this would literally be an infinite money printer. Why even bother mining or anymore? Reborn in the apocalypse, I have an infinite money printer. Just hearing it sounded perfectly reasonable. At that moment, he finally remembered the young man he had neglected. He sighed softly. Sorry, I forgot about you just now. Come here for a second. I haven't even asked your name yet. What should I call you? The young man had completely lost the calm demeanor he had back in the sewers. His head was bowed low, his voice as quiet as a mosquito. My name is Chi Kashio. My younger sister's name is Chi Bushio. After witnessing everything that had just happened with his own eyes, he had a pretty clear idea of this train's true strength. As for the boss in front of him, his power was probably far beyond anything he could imagine. Good names, Chen Meng smiled and nodded, casually tossing the jacket in his hands into the young man's arms. Take this jacket and wear it as a change of clothes. My name is Chen Meng. People usually call me Boss Meng. From now on, your direct superior is Xiao AI. If you have any issues, report directly to her. All right, you can go down now. Contact me if you need anything. Chi Kashio looked at the jacket in his hands, feeling as though it weighed a ton. This was a jacket worth 500 million units of iron ore. If he had gotten his hands on one of these before, he couldn't even imagine how drastically his life would have changed. Yet this astronomical sum of money was as worthless as scrap paper in Boss Meng's eyes. Thank you, Boss Meng. Go on. After Chi Kashio left, Xiao AI's excited voice finally rang out in the control room. Captain, am I really going to be Qi Kashio's direct superior from now on? Chen Meng replied, not particularly amused. What's there to be so excited about? Of course I'm excited. It's like I've become an official. Xiao AI laughed. Don't worry, Captain. I'll definitely do my best to make him research those component blueprints. No rush. Chen Meng waved his hand. Let him get used to the train first. He sat down in his chair and flipped through the train's logbook. After handling all the miscellaneous tasks, he finally leaned back, breathed a sigh of relief, lit a cigarette, and lazily propped his feet up on the control console. Leaving Aqua Blue Planet was a bit jarring, but he felt he was gradually blending into the Casa Civilization Federation. The people here were quite easy to talk to. Whether it was Qiu Yizhao or Zhou Shun, communication was highly efficient and smooth. He liked this kind of interaction. Harmonious, peaceful, no one getting hurt, and no blood being shed. It was great. He loved peace. With that thought, he looked down at the resource balance on the train's control panel. 303.7 billion units of iron ore, 620 million units of wood, 3,531.9 billion units of copper, 19.4 billion units of crimson heart stone, 608.7 billion units of refined titanium ore. He was running low on wood. Although there weren't many components on the train that required wood, having such a small amount still made him feel uneasy. He might not need to use it, but he absolutely couldn't be without it. He had to find a way to get more. His iron ore wasn't exactly overflowing either. Once this job was done, he needed to hurry up and mine some more iron ore. Right now, although he wasn't afraid of a level 1 civilization, he still had to be somewhat cautious if he faced a level 2 civilization or the Casa civilization directly. Especially since most level 1 civilizations had Casa civilization garrisons stationed there. Therefore, he had no intention of causing too much of a ruckus and drawing their attention. Develop stealthily, minimize gunfire. If he could avoid opening fire, he absolutely wouldn't. Let's upgrade you first. Chen Meng looked at the information for the train AI assistant component on the control panel. A green quality component. It only cost 800 million units of iron ore to upgrade it straight to level 200. With this, Xiao AI would officially become a level 200 AI, on par with the AI of the Mechanical Civilization's princess. That wasn't so hard. He flicked his cigarette ash into the coke can beside him and smiled faintly. It only cost the price of a single Lion jacket. And yet, that other AI had been so incredibly smug about it. So what if it was level 200? What was there to brag about? The level 200 supermodel effect of the train AI assistant appeared before his eyes. Massively increased computing power. Can deduce original component blueprints from the void. Only consumes Murphy stones. Does not consume resources. Can deduce up to level 200. Chen Meng froze for a moment. Until now, his biggest advantage had been his level 0 authority, which allowed him to upgrade infinitely without needing Murphy stones. But when deducing, even if he didn't need Murphy stones, he still had to consume resources. And now, he didn't need Murphy stones, nor did he need resources. As long as Qi Kashio created an original component blueprint, he wouldn't have to pay any price at all. He could directly re-roll the blueprint into a perfect supermodel effect that perfectly suited the planetary train. In other words, while others had to pay a massive price every time they re-rolled stats, he could do it for free, with unlimited attempts. Overpowered. Way too overpowered. To put it bluntly, it was so absurd it was adorable. Chen Meng grinned, extremely satisfied with the god-tier supermodel effect of the train AI assistant. Aside from the level 200 single bed with its absolute calm and tranquility effect, which had given him his first taste of spiritual death, none of the other level 200 supermodel effects had ever disappointed him. Absolute tranquility like still water really wasn't a pleasant experience for a normal person. Xiao AI, you need to speed up the progress on your end this time. Chen Meng said, I hope to see the first original component blueprint born within 3 months. Any component will do. Even if it's a white-quality component like a telescope, that's fine. Understood. Xiao AI's excited voice echoed through the train. Suddenly jumping to level 200 and having its computing power skyrocket made it feel incredibly comfortable, even a little proud. The AI of the level 3 Mechanical Civilization's princess was only level 200, and now it was standing on equal footing. As AIs, they couldn't carve out their own piece of the sky by themselves. Their upper limit depended entirely on their masters, and its master was clearly very strong. It didn't have this many emotions before, but over the past year, it had frequently chatted with the AI of the tourist train. The other AI's practically overflowing admiration made it feel incredibly good. The only pity was that Dan's AI level was still too low, so its praises often missed the mark. If it could upgrade Dan's AI in the future, that would be great. Then the compliments would definitely feel even better to hear. Chen Meng shifted his gaze to the other components on the control panel, starting to think about which one to upgrade next. The level 50 Arcana energy subcannon was sufficient for now. Upgrading it further would be too expensive. He'd wait until he had a surplus of iron or to think about it. He still needed to keep a portion of iron ore as an ammunition reserve. Then I'll just upgrade a few cheap components first. For example, the 5 great contributors of the planetary train, the moldy bread production line, the steamed bun production line, the custom clothing production line, the Coca-Cola production line, and the pure water filter. These 5 components had provided a massive amount of necessities for all the residents during the planet's fragile early days. Last time, he had upgraded them all to level 100. This time, he was preparing to upgrade them all to level 200 to see the effects. Except for the pure water filter. Upgrading this component didn't bring any improvements whatsoever. Its supermodel effect had been 0 from start to finish. Even its level 200 supermodel effect was still 0. It had absolutely no upgrade value. The remaining 4 were all white-quality components, costing only 2 billion units of iron ore. They were simultaneously upgraded to level 200. Times really had changed. When he first started out, 2 billion units of iron ore could buy 40,000 bases. But now, it was only enough to buy 4 Lion jackets.